Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Bedazzled Report. I am Devin Decker. He's Sijan Sarwick. Sijan, why don't you say hi to the people?
Hello.
This is one of those planned absences. This is an approved absence episode because Sijan's not going to be there on Memorial Day. So happy Memorial Day. Happy last Monday of Brendan Fraser History Month. Happy Bedazzled episode because we get into it on the film Bedazzled. In this episode.
Bedazzled Day, yeah.
It is the 25th anniversary of Bedazzled, and that's awesome. But before we get to all the fun of that, first, this is being recorded out of space and time, so if something crazy happens and we don't mention it, that's why. Something crazy like, I don't know. I feel like we called our shot on something, Sijan, and it might be relevant to the reason we're here before the theme song. Oh, God, I hope it doesn't happen. God, I hope it doesn't happen. But Netflix just rescued Sesame Street, which is big news, because that's kind of what we hope.
Something we pretty much called a couple of months ago when we first talked about the issues it was having with HBO not renewing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, patting ourselves on the back right here. But the fact that Netflix might swoop in and capture canceled shows, I think that is the best sort of segue into recap of Suits LA. It's just a one and done at the end of the day. It didn't get renewed, but we're gonna finish it. It Suits LA on the Say Report. Alright, so the last episode of Suits LA was the most fun that I've had with Suits LA. That is not because it is a good episode of Suits LA. I want to make sure everybody knows that. It feels like nobody told Suits LA that Suits LA was not getting a second season. Because do you know what the bulk of the runtime of episode 13 of season 1 of Suits LA was? Setting up for season 2.
I was going to say, it's all set up, right? Yeah.
So we'll run through all those things. Kevin has agreed to come back to LA and accept the job that he was offered 6 episodes ago? Yeah, you know.
Nice.
Yeah, that 6 episode thing. All these characters that we haven't seen in a while. At least we saw Kevin in Acapulco, episode 8. But that's 5 episodes since we've seen him in an episode. And he calls up and he's like, yeah, I'll take the job. I'll come out to LA. So that happens. Railsback Lane decides to go through with the original merger that created the whole fucking conflict of this series. Ted was going to merge with Stuart and Samantha, and they were going to be one big happy law firm. I mean, clearly there's no fucking way for that to happen, because who's going to be the head of entertainment? Erica or Rick? Who's going to be the head of criminal law? Stuart or Amanda Stevens? What about the fact that, Ted and Amanda kind of want to date, but one of the reasons why Samantha wants to get the law firms back together is she's starting to have feelings for Ted again. Oh no, what will happen? Jesus,
we'll never fucking
Christ.
Know.
Unless Netflix steps in, and we'll drive off that bridge when we get there. Anywho, the big crux of this episode, entitled Freedom, is that there is a Harvey Weinstein, proxy character played by one of my favorite actors. I can't speak for Sijan, Mike O'Malley. He in his best Gerald Robotnik cosplay. It is the craziest. It will be in supplemental material, people. You need to see what Mike O'Malley looked like in this episode of Suits LA. It make no sense.
Is his mustache cocked or off or something? Something's not right about his mustache.
So the fact of the matter, yeah, it is okay. So that is a photo that I took of my television because I knew you'd have to see it to believe it. But you're not wrong. His mustache is not even. The left side of his face, right? So stage left is lower than the right side of his face, and I really wonder if it's a legitimate mustache or a costume piece that they put on him.
You know how they had to CGI. You know how they had to CGI Henry Cavill's mustache off from Justice League.
Exactly.
I feel like this is where it had to go. They had to put it somewhere.
Yeah. So Mike O'Malley's playing this. He's hyper abusive and all that. And after a shoot in the desert where somebody spoke out against him because he's like, people are going to get hurt. You're working them to exhaustion. You're not giving them water breaks. You're not giving them food breaks. And we're in the desert. Literally, I thought it was going to go the direction of Rust. Like, when they started talking about that, I'm like, holy desert, that was what I just thought. Like, no, do not do that, Suits LA. That's dangerous. Rust, by the way, came out, apparently. It's available on Amazon Prime for rental. And I was surprised because we haven't heard anything about that movie since the unfortunate things that happened on the set of Rust. But that's where I thought it was going. But no, they decided in this show that in the 7th episode tried to retroactively make John Amos America's father, a role that everyone that I've talked to about it agrees was kind of Bill Cosby before we found out what a sexual predator he was. Then decides, how about in our 13th episode, we tackle the sexual predator thing. And it's Mike O'Malley. And I gotta tell you, Mike O'Malley's a hell of an actor. He cannot write a Broadway show to save his fucking life. Escape from Margaritaville is one of the worst shows I've ever seen, and it breaks my heart because I love Mike O'Malley. I love Jimmy Buffett. I love
that show's Garcia. Fine.
It's not fine. Okay, then
that show is fine. If you go in knowing what you're getting into, it is a blast. It is fun.
Maybe it was. I mean, it was a touring production that I saw. Maybe there was an issue with that. I was not a fan. I had very high hopes, and I guess. You say you need to know what you're going into. I thought I was going in for like a Greg Garcia, like a Raising Hope or a My Name is Earl. But it was more Mike O'Malley. It was more extended family than Sprung. But yeah, so he's playing this sexual guy. They have 10 people who are willing to go on the record based on the ways that he has treated them. And he gets them all. He talks to them all, threatens them all. They all walk away. Now, the main crux behind this is Samantha wants Ted to help her to do this. Like, we want to work together to take down this guy who's an abusive fucking force in Hollywood. How are we going to do that? Turns out, as we find out in this episode, Rosalind, remember Rosalind? She was gone for 4 episodes, and then she showed up last episode for 2 scenes. Rosalind used to be Avery, that's Mike O'Malley, the Avery instead of Harvey. Like, it's right there. Like, come on, guys. She used to be his assistant. And, it took her 10 years to get over the abuses that she suffered at his hands. So when Ted's like, look, we're going to go after him, she's like, I cannot help you. I can't help you with this. I think you should, but keep me out of it. So when they find out that Avery has intimidated the 10 people that they have agreed to testify in open court about this guy's actions, Ted's like, I have one other Hail Mary that we might be able to go for. So the first thing they do is they go to Bill. Remember Bill, the studio head that made me laugh because it was Bill and Ted? He makes Ted apologize to him for making him look like an asshole in open court. And then he agrees to give them copies of all the HR complaints that were started, but then were ultimately quashed by the power that Avery wields. So they have all those, and they figure this should be enough. If we can't get people to testify in open court, all of these complaints to HR, it was like a massive amount of HR complaints that just never went further.
Is that to imply that if Ted did not, grin and bear it and say, I'm sorry, this man was going to just let this go?
Oh, yeah. That's how much he hates Ted Black. Like, you need to, yeah, that's what it's to imply.
I think that says how much of a scumbag that guy might actually be.
No, I don't disagree with you, but you need to understand how powerful Avery is. Like, you really need to give me something. Like, it really talks about the fragility of egos in Hollywood. That, like, an apology from Ted is enough for this guy to risk his entire studio career to go up against the big bad wolf that is Avery. Fucking is crazy. So he agrees. They go to court. Turns out this whole thing's a fucking misdirect anyway, because he was an independent contractor, which means none of those HR complaints that they got from the studio level were directed at him from within his own company, and actually are then not admissible evidence against him. Look at how Hollywood protects the fucking scumbags that make them billions. Ugh, it's gross. So then Ted goes to Rosalind and he's like, look, the only way that we can make this guy pay for his crimes is if we get something from inside his company. And Rosalind, that's you. You're the best inside track for this. And I know it's going to be hard for you to have to live that mental abuse again, but if you go forward with this, once he's accused, other people will feel safe enough to come out and back you up. You just need to be the first crack in the ice. And she says, Ted, there's something I didn't tell you. I haven't told anybody. There was one night where he tried to sexually assault me. And that's like a holy fuck moment. It's supposed to be meaningful, and it would be meaningful if Rosalind had been treated like a full-time cast member and not someone who showed up when they needed her. Ditto, Leah shows up in this episode for exactly one scene. And in that scene, Erica shows that she still does not value her abilities as a lawyer. Because she comes to Leah's office. Leah's like, oh, I'm having a ribbon cutting ceremony to introduce my new office. Erica rips the ribbon down and says, I need, and Leah hands her everything that she needs. Because she, in the other story, and it doesn't fucking matter, is trying to negotiate more money for Dylan Pryor out of either Sean Baker's back end or the production's back ends. They want profit sharing for Dylan Pryor. Doesn't matter. That's the end of that story. I mean, it's not. We're going to touch on it, but it's not important based upon the whole Rosalind thing. So Rosalind, after telling Ted, he's like, if we do this, we'll make sure that there's no more Rosalinds. He'll never be able to hurt another person. I will protect you. So Rosalind agrees to go forward with it. And then she goes to Marvin Stemple. Stemple? Marvin Stemple. Do you remember Marvin Stemple, Sejan? Do you remember that character?
No. Go ahead.
It's Rich Summer. It's the character that Rich Summer plays, and it's like, oh, Rich Summer, cool guy to hang out with. Never really liked you in any shows. He showed up for one episode because Erica was an asshole to Leah, and Leah filed an HR complaint. Turns out Marvin Semple was the HR director for Avery's company, was told about the sexual assault by Rosalind, tried to do something about it, and lost 10 years of his career. So him now working at Black & Associates is Rosalind trying to pay him back for what he did all those years ago. And she's like, look, they're ready to go for him. They have people, but I cannot do this alone. You were HR, and I know you keep the receipts, Marvin. Can you bring forward any of the complaints that got started and then never went forward from within Avery's own company? So now they have all the evidence ready to go, but they need a prosecutor. Because remember, they're all defense attorneys. So Sophia Pernis comes back, Elizabeth Smith, the prosecutor from the whole Dexter murder trial thing. God, that feels like it happened 1,000 years ago. It was 7 episodes ago. And Ted's like, look, we need justice. You need to be the one to do this because I know that you. She's like, I don't want to ruin my career. I heard what happened with you and Pellegrini. You put him away, then you lost your job. I'm not looking to be the next Ted Black. And he's like, look, we have a strong case. We just need a strong prosecutor to make this happen. And somebody who's willing to play in the gray. Also, he had to go to Amanda and say, look, I'm going to ask Elizabeth Smith to help us. And she's like, she's not a good person. She's not going to do it right. And Ted's like, I'm still going to ask her because that's the type of person we need in this moment. So they bring Avery into the conference room at Black & Associates, and they show him this mountain of evidence, and he's like, it doesn't matter, neither of you are prosecutors. So then in walks Elizabeth saying, but I am, and let me give you a sneak peek of the front page of tomorrow's Los Angeles Times, and it's Avery arrested for sexual crimes. And he's like, that's bull. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. She goes, oh, it is going to happen. I don't care about statute of limitations or not. You are arrested for sexual assault because we have evidence you did it. People will come out of the woodworks and they'll bury you. But we're willing to offer you a one-time deal. You sign this plea bargain. You do not go to jail, but you also never work in this industry again. So they do that. He agrees to sign it because you don't want to risk going to jail for the literal pile of evidence that they have of times that this guy has just been a fucking asshole. And then once he signs that, Elizabeth goes, excellent, now we can get started on registering you as a sexual offender. And he's like, whoa, that wasn't part of the deal. And she's like, yeah, but you just signed an admission of sexual assault. That's the next step. So they totally cut the legs out from that guy. And that's when the whole fucking love session happens with, we want you to come back and all that. So that was the big major part of this episode. Back in 2010, we got to see the night that Ted's brother, Eddie, was killed. And it turns out, like we had heard from Rick Santoro, that Ted was the target. He didn't mean to kill his brother. Turns out their father was aware of that. So when he had said, I want to take you both to dinner the night before I go to jail, he shows up at Ted's apartment and says, I actually just want to take you out. And Eddie agrees that he's just going to sit in the apartment and he'll order a pizza and it's fine. Go have time with Dad. He forgets to call Eddie because he says, I'll check in with you. Gets a frantic call from Kevin saying, there's a hit out on you. Pellegrini's going to do it tonight. And his apartment blows up with his brother inside. And he's wearing a suit because he's trying to be like Ted. And so they think that Ted is dead. And then he's like, oh my. And then Ted realizes that his father took him out and left Eddie there so that Eddie would be the one killed. And then his father admits it's because I needed you to be safe, and Eddie has always been your weakness. Also, one of you had to die for Pellegrini to feel like it was an even playing field, and I would give up Eddie every time. And then Ted, because you never thought of him as a son. And it's just like, fucking, of course he's not going to forgive his father in the first episode. Like, it was kind of this cathartic thing, but also, we've known all of this since the first episode. Like, seeing it didn't really do anything to make it better or more meaningful. It was just sad watching Eddie explode as he's eating pizza in his brother's suit, watching an episode of Friends. So the last thing is that Stewart is the executor of Ted's father's will, and he's wanted him, I don't want any of his fucking money. So what Stewart does in secret with Kevin, the park that Ted and Ed used to go to when they were younger, they purchase it, they're going to build it all up, and they're going to rename it the Eddie Black Memorial Park, so that his father's money goes to honoring the son that he never gave a shit about. And that's kind of a cathartic, nice moment as well. The final thing is that Rick Dylan Pryor kissed him and that whole thing. And he's like, I can't do it because I'm your lawyer. A lot of clients fall for their lawyers because you see us fight for you. And that's like triggers the whole response. It's the same reason why people fall in love with their therapists, all that bullshit. So then she goes to Erica and says, I want you to be my lawyer because I have reasons. She doesn't say I want to like fuck Rick. So then she goes to Rick and she's like, I've signed with Erica, so now we can try this relationship. And then Rick's like, oh no, actually I didn't tell you, but I have a feeling for somebody else. That's the real reason we couldn't get together. And then, so she's all pissed, and Dylan then doesn't go away from Rick. She stays his client. Erica's pissed, thinking that Rick told Dylan some mistruths about her, misrepresented her, and then it ends with them in Rick's apartment about to get it on. All of these things that we will never see happen in Suits Season 2. They really wanted it to be Samantha versus Amanda. Who will Ted choose? Maybe she's like, I like it messy. Maybe they're going to try a polyamorous thing. Who fucking knows, right? We could conjecture till the days are over. But I am so happy they properly named that episode Freedom, because I feel free from the albatross around my neck that was recapping Suits LA. A show that, like, they had an arc for the first 6 episodes, but then when faced with the open world of possibilities that was the back end of this 13-episode series, they dropped the ball. They were given too much rope and they hung themselves. And it's just kind of unfortunate. But, you know.
How does it feel, Devin? How does it feel to be free? Free from the hell of your own making.
It does kind of feel like I finally just picked up the pager, typed in 666, and now I'm in front of Elizabeth Hurley again, and I'm like, that's not what I wanted. What I wanted, a 5 years later sequel to Suits? What the hell? So the only thing is, perfect. With the news of Sesame Street getting picked up and the numbers that Suits was doing on Netflix being the reason that this whole fucking thing happened, I am that little bit fearful that Netflix might step in and say, we're going to do a season 2 of Suits LA.
Yeah, but keep in mind that every time that Netflix has done this sort of move, and you know, maybe this is a word of warning for what might come with the Sesame Street stuff, there have been such significant changes to cast and style and there's a lot of people out there that will tell you their opinions about things like Lucifer season 5 or Arrested Development season 4, right?
Yeah.
They've not really necessarily been ones to renew a show and stick to whatever that show is doing. So what I'm saying is maybe that'll be a good thing if they do pick it up. Maybe they'll get the chance to actually do this show some justice.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, I think that they would clearly follow what feels like the original path for Suits LA, which was to do 6 episodes and then plan out their remaining 7 episodes. I think it was going to be a part A, part B thing. I mean, that's what regular Suits did. When Suits was on USA, we'd get 5 episodes, and then 4 months would go before we got 5 more episodes. So it's one of those situations where, that is how I feel Aaron Korsh was approaching this show. Because those first 6 episodes really flowed into each other. And then the last 7 felt like we're just going to throw mashed potatoes at the wall and hope we build something beautiful. I will say this, it was great to see Gabriel Macht again as Harvey Specter, and it was incredible to see Rick Hoffman come back as Louis Litt. Those moments will be forever. But none of these characters were very strong, but also they weren't given the 9 seasons to grow and become as strong as Suits allowed some admittedly weak characters to become. So, all in all, this has been an interesting experiment. I don't want to waste anyone else's time. We have a whole episode on Bedazzled that is incredible. I'm so proud of the work we did in it. It really honors Brendan Fraser, and I think we have a great time. Would you agree, C. Jim?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm excited for you guys to hear.
All right, so that said, for the last time, we recap Suits LA. That's it for the show. What a glorious day. To quote Ted, we drove off that bridge when we got there. No more Suits LA on the Say Report. God willing. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, it's Sejan Sarowick. How you doing, Sejan?
I'm here. I'm here with my Milwaukee pick-me-up.
Oh, man, I love it. So you just heard us recap the last ever episode of Suits LA. That is me calling a shot. I know it's been canceled, but there's a chance that somebody's like, we're Netflix, we'll pick it up and we'll keep doing Suits LA. People really liked it. So we'll see what happens. But that should be the end of the recaps of Suits LA. Perhaps the end of that whole recap schedule thing. I don't know. The Say Report is an ever-evolving organism. But I'd like to, before we get to talking about celebrating Brendan Fraser History Month, our biggest celebration of Brendan Fraser History Month for the year 2025, Sejan informed me that he put a little bit of rum chata in his coffee. And then, because we're us, we're like, well, what would that be? Because, you put Bailey's in there, it's an Irish coffee. You put tequila in there, it's a Mexican coffee. But what about rum chata? And that's what we stumbled upon, this Caribbean-themed liqueur, portmanteau of rum and horchata. Say it again, Sejan.
Milwaukee?
I don't know if that's great. Yeah, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So either he's having a Milwaukee pick-me-up or a Wisconsin coffee, which you would think is putting just a whole block of cheddar into the mug and then putting the coffee over it. But turns out, is horchata. Why is horchata made in Wisconsin, of all places?
Yeah. Well, because nothing is real. I mean, Foster's isn't made in Australia. Most of it's all made in Canada, isn't it?
Yes. Also, the Guinness that we get in America is made in America, but they still call it imported. All right. We have one more minute of shenanigans before we get into the movie. Anything else you want to shenanigize about before we start talking about
finished
that?
finished up the Fallout series
Nice.
this weekend, and really enjoyed it. Really excited for season 2. But I want to dedicate today to Brendan Fraser, so we'll
Yes,
maybe
I
talk
agree.
more about it next week.
So since we're going to tease, I saw Disney's Snow White, the live-action adaptation of Snow White, and I have thoughts because I think it may have been a spec ops to test the truth about dead internet theory. It was a scene, man. But now, 3 minutes into the episode, well, 3 and however long our Suits LA recap was, it's time to celebrate Brendan Fraser History Month. And the way that we're doing it is by looking at a film that turns 25 years old this year, directed by, we're fans of him here at the show, rest in peace, rest in power, really, Harold Ramis, and starring our favorite Brendan Fraser. It's a remake of a 1967 film starring Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, I believe. It's Bedazzled. And here's my favorite part about today. Sejin essentially is a magic 8-ball, and I'm going to shake him, and I get to see if right now he likes the movie Bedazzled or if he hates the movie Bedazzled. Sejin is the Schrodinger's cat of enjoying the film Bedazzled. So let us take the box cover off and see how he's feeling about Bedazzled today.
Bedazzled is a film full of potential. Bedazzled, the remake, like as Devin said, we're specifically talking about the Brendan Fraser version. It is a written by Harold Ramis. You said that, right?
Yeah, written by Harold Ramis, adapted from the 67 of Peter Cook and Dudley Moore.
Yeah. But it is a film full of really cool concepts and starts, and a lot of really interesting scene work and all of that. But altogether, it is a mishmash of a film. It is, by its very nature, the kind of disjointed, because it's almost like watching. It's like when we watch an SNL movie or Brain Candy, Kids in the Hall, right? Yeah. Whenever you see any skit troupe get together to make their own movie, and it feels like, okay, but this is just a bunch of your skits all just kind of strewn together, right? There's no, and the cohesive tissue, it's really hard to sell that cohesive tissue sometimes, but it's not impossible. There are definitely good examples of this kind of thing out there, right? But ranging everywhere from we're just going to lean into it Kentucky Fried movie, so it's just skit after skit, and that's just what that movie is, all the way to National Lampoon's Vacation, which we've talked about before, how road movies for me are made up by the fact that they're just it's a really good excuse for a bit to bubble up and then disappear and never be addressed again, right? And this movie has this really interesting framing device of this guy making wishes with the devil on his shoulder, guiding him the whole way. And there's a little bit of Dante's Inferno thrown into it and things like that. I appreciate that, but it never quite breaks away from from that structure to the point where it just becomes kind of hard to get invested in anything that happens at any point in this movie.
And that's
I also don't love, just as a specific trope and a side note thing, I also am not a huge fan of the finding someone who looks like the person you liked, but is the reveal at the end of another person that is more suited for him rather than the person he's been pursuing this whole time. But it's just that actress in a different costume,
usually in a brown wig, following the progression of attractiveness based on hairstyles, because it's redhead to blonde. It's blonde to redhead to brunette in Hollywood. A great example of that is my super ex-girlfriend, because when they get exposed to the rocks that give them their superpowers, their hair color evolves to the next level of what Hollywood tells us societally is attractive in a woman. Is my favorite part of that movie, and there's not a lot great in that movie. But we're talking about Bedazzled today, but it is one of those things where I can't get away from something like My Super Ex-Girlfriend, because there are just so many gosh darn examples of it. Also, I wanted to look up, because you're not wrong, the exact one. Does Zooey Deschanel play Autumn in 500 Days of Summer, or does someone else play Autumn?
No, it's Zooey Deschanel.
It is Zooey Deschanel, yeah. Oh, no, it's Minka Kelly who plays Autumn. So she's Summer and then Autumn is a different person. But it is.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Okay,
so that's
okay.
what I wanted to
Sorry.
confirm.
Yeah, I thought you were asking me if she was in that movie, and so I just jumped. I was like, yes, of course she's in that movie. It's one of the big things about that movie. But I wasn't actually thinking about what you asked me. Sorry.
No, it's completely understandable. But yeah, like that's that same trope. But I'm like, well, at least they gave her a different actor. But exactly, like he's been in summer for love with summer for 500 days, and now he's gonna start dating Autumn, and it's. Basically,
They do it a lot in time travel movies where like somebody will fall in love with like a princess in the past but can't stay with her, but then when they come to the future they find like the now equivalent of it, what's Dracula, is it Dracula Untold, I think, or something? It's one of the Dracula ones does it too, where like he falls in love with someone but decides to like not bite her or whatever, and then years later runs into someone that looks just like her, that kind of shit. It's a little bit more interesting when it's part of the story, and like it's like, oh yeah, my great grandmother or some nonsense, like that's at least got like a hook to it, but very often it's used at the end of the movie, tag button on a film before the credits roll, right? And it's and there's never time to explain that kind of shit. So it's just a momentary like basically admitting this woman was a prop the whole time.
But what if, Sejan, ripping the Band-Aid off of the end of Bedazzled here, by the way, we're not going as far as Sister Hazel singing, what's that? Change Your Mind is the song that they do in this one. The dawn of the third wave of Sister Hazel's popularity. This is why they got to play at the 2000 Jingle Mingle, was because of the song being in Bedazzled. That is the truest statement I've ever made on this show. But what if Allison is also making wishes with the devil? And that is her wish to be with Elliot. She becomes Nicole. What if, man? I mean, we've established that magic exists in the world. Or what if Nicole is making wishes and becoming Allison?
Yeah, and then all that happens when you become a different person is your hair color changes. And
your eyes color changes too. This film could be called Brendan Fraser and the Contacts of Many Colors. I have to imagine that was annoying for him. Those green eyes when he's the super sensitive guy, they're so green, they have to be painful. But yeah, we're kind of getting out of order here. I wanted to do Bedazzled because, well, here's the first thing. I love this movie. Like, straight up, I will admit that I do love this film. But I love this film in a way that we rarely take in media anymore. I had alluded to last week when we were doing the tier list that in 2018, I watched Blast from the Past 4 times in Brendan Fraser History Month. And that was only because I kept catching it on cable. And that is exactly what Bedazzled is for me. Bedazzled is one of those Saturday afternoon films that if it's on, and I'm going to watch it. To the point that I do not believe, Siege and Sarawik and the listeners, that I have ever seen Bedazzled from start to finish until I watched it earlier today for this recording. like that is like stuff's happening and I'm like, oh, I knew the whole thing at the end where like it says that he drinks from the carton and she hogs the covers. I didn't realize that the start of this movie is what we're meant to believe is the devil using a primitive form of Google Maps to locate the perfect mark for the Faustian scheme that she's about to embark upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a combination of words I put together, and the fact that it left Siege speechless, maybe that's all you need to know about this movie.
Yeah, it's just because like it is interesting. It's wild because it isn't what you expect is going to happen, but also then it's never really given any like earnest like grounding into why it's happening that way, right? I still don't understand why Elliot is the one, right? Why, like there's nothing special about Elliot, which is like, I think the point, right? But the movie doesn't ever take the chance to run with that, right? Like
Sejan, I don't know. The structure of this episode, I'm apologizing to everybody because this thing is going to be one of the craziest things since the deleted scene from the film Bedazzled, which we'll cover later on. But you're familiar with Everyman, right? The play Everyman. Yeah. I don't know if we did it at URI. I know that when I finally ended up passing theater history at Rhode Island College, that was when I read Everyman for the first time.
Yeah, but Everyman's one of those old traveling shows from medieval times where, like, it's basically a bunch of parables all strung together about a normal dude in like situations that all have like biblical morals, right?
Yes. I mean, this is, for all intents, this is a morality play that we get to watch in the year 2000. Brendan Fraser was asked who his favorite role that he plays in this film is, because as Sejan said, it's basically a combination of little skits where you have a cast of characters who are all playing the different roles, and Brendan Fraser takes front and center playing these different roles based upon the wishes that he makes with the devil. And he has said that his favorite role in this movie is the Elliot at the end of the film, where he has gone through his journey and it has made him comfortable with the person that he is. And that's an interesting answer, but then he goes on in this interview to say, I really like it because it's like a modern morality play. We don't see things like this anymore. And Liz Hurley, you are almost left at the end of the film wondering if she might be God and not the devil. But by acting in guise of the devil, she's actually able to capture attention and make people, learn these important lessons. And that, to me, is such an out-of-pocket explanation for this film, because by all accounts, we also meet God, or at least one of his messengers, but then...
in the prison, right?
In the prison, yeah. Scene? And then we see him again at the end, playing chess with Elizabeth Hurley's devil. So it's just one of those things where, like, God and the devil, and maybe Bob, I mean, Bob's in the movie at least, but God and the devil are still doing the shit they did back in Job's day, where it's like, well, we're immortal, we're bored, why don't we entertain ourselves by messing with a mortal right now? Mm-hmm. And it kind of feels like that. But to go back to it, sorry.
But that's what I mean. Is like I'm okay with that if that is what it is, right? But the movie doesn't really take the opportunity to really talk about that part of it, right? So in terms of like what's going on in the movie, like it feels very much. If somebody were to stage Everyman today, the play Everyman today, I would have the same issues with it in that regard. Is that like, but this has there's no grounding in like anything that's happening. Things are just happening because they need to happen in order for us to get to the moral. Right. Yeah. And that would have been fine 600 years ago or whatever, but because like they weren't watching this with like a critical lens the way that we would be in 2025 after everything that's happened, right? Like there's something to be said about how you could have your cake and eat it too in that regard. If that's the hook, if that's the intent, that's great. I need a frame for that as an audience member. As you and I are familiar with this shit, and even half of us here are kind of having a problem with it being used. I can only imagine if you're not somebody that is up to snuff on theater history enough to know this kind of shit, giving a care or a thought about that. All you're experiencing as a theater goer is you're sitting down and this thing starts in front of you, and what happens in this movie kind of just happens. It just happens because we need to in order to move the plot along in a lot of places. It's a movie full of conveniences, but it's all to serve this idea of this morality play. So you're either on board for that from moment one or you're not. And I don't know if this movie does enough to earn you being on board real quick.
Well, and actually, that's an interesting thing to start. And I think that's where we start. Because you said everything that's happened, right? There was a time, specifically it was like 1999 to like 2001 maybe. When did Bruce Almighty come out? That's going to be when I say this time stops. In
I would probably guess about 2009.
No, Bruce Almighty is definitely before 2009. I don't think
is it
we
really?
knew each other when that
I thought I was in college when that movie came out.
2003. You're thinking of Evan Almighty. Yeah, Bruce Almighty is a 2003 film. Let me confirm that Evan Almighty is the one.
2009 and 2003, that's a 6-year difference. That's within the same decade. You know how good that is for me? You're lucky I didn't say 1999.
I'm so proud of you. And Evan Almighty came out in 2007, so I totally can understand that being what you conflated it with. Because it's a huge, like, we're building on Bruce Almighty, but let's not have Bruce in it anymore. He learned his lesson.
To be we're not talking about Evan Almighty right now, but Evan Almighty is ridiculous because of the ways in which it's just not at all the same character.
For Evan, yeah, that's very true. But there's also the fact that it's also literally the script of Disney's Noah from The Wonderful World of Disney, starring Tony Danza in his first time playing a character not named Tony. And I'm so proud of him for that. But yeah, it's there was this time where movies were like Dogma exists, Bruce Almighty exists, all of these movies that like, let's bring religion into it. Little Nicky, right? We're the Adam Sandler guys. Let's talk about the fact that Little Nicky is around 2000 as well. This became something that people were willing to not only make movies about, but watch movies about. Right?
Well, there already was like a good subgenre of like religious based what do you call it? Like cinema, right? Like because you had films like, specifically I'm thinking about angel-based movies like Michael or like City of Angels, right? Like so there was already kind of a subgenre like that existed, but they were always saved for heavy drama, right? It was always this idea that like, yeah, we can broach this religious subject. Maybe the closest to a non-drama being Preacher's Wife, but even that one is pretty heavy for a light family film, right? Like you can show it to a kid, but I wouldn't, right? There's nothing, a kid's not going to get anything out of a Preacher's Wife, but there's definitely nothing in it that's going to offend them. But it's a phenomenal Denzel Washington performance. But anyway, we're not talking about that.
Is that a remake as well? Like
what's up?
We're talking about, is that a remake as well?
I think it might be. I do believe that there is an older film that is basically the same concept.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies in that.
Oh yeah, I mean we could go all day on that. I just wanted to, while we're talking about remake, it would make sense in the remake. Sorry.
So what we saw in the 2000s was suddenly this shift where we could make jokes about it, right? I mean, and it's not that this didn't come around earlier either, because Bedazzled itself is a remake, as we've talked about, of a 1970s film.
1967.
1967.
Yeah.
So there was a period where we could kind of do that, but what we hit was a period where that's just not what we did, right? We made dramatic movies about religion. And then we got into the 2000s again, and suddenly it was like, much like we kind of talk about with like kind of that nostalgia for like older films in which you got movies like American Pie, you start to get movies like this where it's like, oh, we could be a little cheeky about religion again.
Yeah. For the record, it's The Bishop's Wife that The Preacher's Wife is a remake of.
Nice.
I knew it's a remake, but it's not called the same thing. Yeah, it is this time. And I think part of what allows that to happen is the fact that the world didn't end in the year 2000. Because what younger listeners might not realize or remember is that there was a pretty big contingency of people who thought that the year 2000 was going to be cataclysmic. People thought, well, Revelations, 2,000 years, Jesus is coming back. And then that was mitigated by the fact that you had the whole Y2K scare, right? Like, there was this whole thing, oh, man, that's a lot of proof, huh? All the computers are going to die? That's because Jesus is coming back. And he do not want to learn Wi-Fi. He don't want to know what an IP address is.
It's the generational. Yeah. It's the generational double move, right? Because not 20 years earlier, less than that, even 10 years earlier, they were having things like Satanic Panic, right? And the idea of like religion kind of dictating entertainment was. And structuring it and censoring it and things like that was not wasn't that crazy at the end of the 80s, the early 90s, right? And then at the end of the 90s, you started to get that. You get guys like Bill Maher starting politically incorrect, right? Or Dennis Miller has kind of tips his toe into like pushing the boundaries and late night and stuff like that, right? And then 2000 happens, like you're mentioning Y2K / the year 2000 just biblically.
Yeah.
this means the world's gonna end. There was a bunch of that nonsense. Then there was 9/11, like, just to bring up that old bag. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens right at the turn of the millennium that shifts American views, specifically American views, towards, like, reconsidering its relationship with religion. I'm not saying that atheists didn't exist before the year 2000, but in our kind of realm, in our day-to-day life, in the world around us, the exploration and then eventually acceptance of the fact that somebody might be secular is like is there's a huge shift in the 2000s across the board for that, which is why it then becomes kind of okay for us to poke fun at religion, because we're exploring our relationship with it. We're questioning our relationship with it as a people, and a lot of us are finding that it's not for them.
Yeah, it is this thing. And actually, it's interesting that you bring up 9/11, because I thought that was going to be like my line, as like, this is kind of where we stopped being so glib about religion and kind of just pulled it out of the equation in our entertainment. But then I think of something like Bruce Almighty and that confirmation of 2003. I believe that Bruce Almighty was a movie that was probably in the works pre 9/11. Which is also what I feel about Love Actually, because all of the freedom they have in the airports in the 2003 film really just feels completely out of bounds when we know what happened in the wake of September 11th with travel.
Yeah.
Things that we're still dealing with, if we're going to be completely honest here on the show today. But yeah, so this is a film, it feels like a weird kind of relic of what we were doing with comedy, like that we could actually poke fun at religion. Nowadays, they say it's a war on Christians, right? That like everybody's meaning that, or it's anti-Semitism and stuff like that. And not to say that those things don't exist, right? I'm not saying that that's not real, but if this movie were released in 2025, I don't think that it would ever get made in 2025. Like, I just don't think anyone would allow this type of film to happen now.
It really kind of depends, because, like, you could lean in a little bit more to the fact that what she's actually doing as the devil, Hurley in this movie is the devil, is doing, like, good work, and is she actually God at the end, that question that you pose and things like that. Like, there's, I don't know. I mean, from a religious aspect, this is logic, and censorship never follows logic. So I understand that like, this is me grasping at the longest of straws, but like there is definitely an approval of, right? There is definitely a reinforcement of religious belief in this movie, right? As much as it pokes fun at the concepts and the structure of religion in terms of like, oh yeah, you're going to go on this magical journey and just become a different person by the end of it. But like this idea that at the end of the day, he is saved, right? Like, so it's kind of hard to see this as a religious person, as somebody that used to be religious, and find any way in which this makes me feel like it's making fun of my religion. In fact, it feels like it's just reinforcing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but
that is problematic in its own way.
Right, but your ideals about that, everything that you just said, comes from the fact that you watched the movie. And all of that satanic panic, everything that you talked about that we went through in the 90s, the idea that the Ninja Turtles were trying to promote Satanism because they have 3 fingers, and that's 6, right? That's 6 fingers altogether. Like the arguments
and there's 4 of them, making, so that's 6, 6, 6, 6.
Yeah,
it's worse
right?
than 6,
that's
6,
1
6.
6 worse than the devil, right? They're Kappa demons, right? Like people said that whole thing, that they're just adaptations of the Japanese folklore of the Kappa demon, and they're trying to lead our children down wayward paths. All of that came from people who didn't actually take in the material. Because I think you're right. I think that if someone does watch this film, ultimately he is saved. He's saved by himself. He's not saved by some otherworldly figure. I mean, God intervenes in some way, right? Like cellmate, as he is credited, Gabe Cassius, like he comes in and he tells him some necessary truths to make sure that he is guided on the proper path.
Well, okay, so here's the question that I pose to you then. Do you think that Elizabeth Hurley as the devil, I can't keep saying the devil without just like doing the full thing, like, because it is very specifically this devil. But do we think that she is trying earnestly to get his soul the whole time and then fails at the end, or do we think that this is the idea? Is that he is saved? Like, was this the goal all along?
I think that she would be happy either way. The first thing that I'm going to say, and this is without, if I meet the devil and he does not appear to me at one time in the form of Elizabeth Hurley, the devil has failed in being the devil for Devin Decker. Right? Because, like, I fully believe that the devil can take many forms. I like that lore of the devil, and they work it nicely into this. And and honestly, a character like Elliot Richards, a beautiful woman, is the exact form that the devil should and would take in order to get him to give up his soul to her. And I think that's just a fact of it. That's just a fact of this thing. You say that, like, there's not a lot of meat in this movie. That is not because of God or the devil. That is because this movie prayed to the church, a studio oversight, and audience reactions. There was a lot more meat in the original film of this version, but it made audiences not sympathetic towards the character of Elliot. They did not care if he got redeemed or learned a lesson because he was that off-putting. To quote the filmmakers, we decided that less was more with the character of Elliot Richards. And I agree. One of the reasons I say I don't know if I've ever seen this movie from the beginning, I forgot just how cringy and, like, gross his character is. When he takes out the Polaroids of his fucking speakers, I wanted to stop watching the movie. And I'm just like, why? Why is he so gross? But the fact of the matter is, because you need to start him in that so that he has a place to grow and become a better person. But then, to your argument, is the type of person who is walking around with Polaroids of his stereo equipment really an everyman? Or is like, it's a lot. It's a real lot, his character.
We all have quirks, Devin.
Yes, we do all have quirks. He has all of the quirks. He can't read social cues. He's the worst. Like, watching this movie from the beginning, I'm like, oh, I can finally understand why Sejan might have problems with this film. Because for me, it's a couple of jokey, laughy moments, and he ultimately learns this lesson that he should be happy with the person that he is. But at the end of the movie, he's not the person that he is, because the person that he is this gross, smells like pea soup, stereo equipment enthusiast that, like, it looks like if he handed you $1 bill, it would be damp no matter what season it was. Like, I did. And everybody despises him. He can't read social cues. I just... and credit to Brendan Fraser, right? Everything that I just said is in credit of the acting ability of Brendan Fraser, because I love him. I absolutely love him as an actor. I dedicate every May to his memory and celebrating his work. And the fact that somebody who was so easily charismatic and likable in so many films was able to do this at a time in his career where his stock was on the rise, right? This is 2000. He just did The Mummy. He just became Rick for everybody. He launched, not knowing at the time, 1,000 bumper stickers reading, I would rather be watching the 1999 Mummy movie starring Brendan Fraser. Bumper stickers. And then he plays this character who is, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, despicable. He's despicable. And he's not the kind of despicable where, like, look at me, I'm setting fire to orphanages and stealing children's candy. He's the kind of despicable where, like, it's just the type of person you would never want to interact with. And the fact
if
that
they were to do this movie in 2025, I think that they'd probably be leaning into two specific tropes. The nice guy trope for sure. I think there'd be a lot more of that kind of baked into him. But that is you see early stages of that here. But then the other one is I'm trying to think of like the terminally online like internet dweller, right? Like trolls. The
The
terminally
troll?
online
Yeah.
troll, right? Like there would be something about like that kind of thing, right? Except instead of the internet, or instead of like shitting on people for movies, or jumping on Twitter and like ripping people apart for liking a TV show, or a music artist, he just really likes stereo equipment instead.
Yeah, and that is such a specific thing, but also, I don't know about your experiences, I've been in the conversation with that guy. And it's just like, ugh, I like want to take a shower right now thinking about it. Like, I don't want to talk to Elliot Richards at the beginning of this movie. What, like, he's trying to like force people to hang out with him, and then he goes to the bar and all those people are just hanging out, and you're just like, this poor bastard. But like, how much of it is because of your actions and the way that you are existing in this world?
But I think that like
Sorry.
part of the reason why I have such an issue with this movie, right, and this betrayal, is not because I think he's so despicable I don't like him. There is definitely that aspect of it. It is hard to come around on Elliot, and the movie, again, I feel doesn't do the legwork for me necessarily to prove that, you know, this movie is to get where this movie wants me to be by the end of it. It doesn't always land for me. But the biggest thing is that there are aspects about him that you could read and get the really wrong messaging, because there are people in this world, in the real world, that have these kinds of quirks, that have these kinds of things that they lean into, that have these special interests and things like that have issues with reading social cues and things like that are not gross people. They're just people that are. There's all sorts of different reasons why somebody might not be able to do this sort of stuff, right? This movie really wants me to believe that these symptoms all come from the fact that Elliot is not a good person. And that sucks, because I've seen some of these symptoms in people I know and love. I've seen some of these symptoms in me. And like, you can call that kind of like wink wink nudge nudge, like purposeful, and say like, oh yeah, you see yourself in this character, huh? But then I don't want to with the other stuff that he does, right? Because it's the actions that he makes. It's like the nice guy. This is where I say it kind of leans into some of the early day like nice guy trope stuff for me. When I say early day, because the nice guy trope has been around forever. This is not like this is not the start of the nice guy trope, but this is one of those first movies where I saw it, and I saw this happening, and I thought, I don't like that. Is that it's not that he has these quirks. It's not that he is kind of silly and has some oddities about him. That's what makes us human. It's the ways in which he acts upon them, and it's the ways in which he feels like he is deserved some credit for being just a good person in the world by doing the bare minimum as a human being. He thinks he has the right to, in this case, humanity, but women, you know, like all summed up in the MacGuffin that is Allison. He feels like he is owed something from them just for being a person in the world.
Yeah, but I will say this about that, because you're not wrong. That is definitely a way that he acts. He's not someone like Jason Biggs in My Best Friend's Girl, right? Like, Jason Biggs in My Best Friend's Girl is a better example of the nice guy trope, because he is doing everything that he can.
It's a cleaner example for sure.
Yeah. He is very much, I'm gonna be your best friend until you like me. With Allison, like, when he goes and he's like, yeah, we've worked at the same place for 4 years together, and she's like, have we met? And he's like, yeah, we talked to each other 3 years ago. Right? Like, it's not as if he has been popping up in her life and trying to be there and being rebuffed or being accepted, but in, you know, that worst of the worst to be in the 90s, the friend zone. This is just a girl that he saw, had an instant attraction to. He talked to 3 years ago, and now he's really only talking to her again because, like, stalkerish behavior, definitely not excusable. He knows that this woman, that he admits that we've only spoken together one time 3 years and 2 months ago, right? That's a red fucking flag. But then he's also aware that she has been single for 3 months, which is information he drops on who will be the Greek chorus of this play. Which, just to pause for station identification, I feel so bad for Miriam Shore. I love Miriam Shore. I think she's a great actor. She's been in so many things. I just want to confirm before I do this, because I'm trying to give her credit. But, you know, She was in Siegen. Come on, buddy. Good Christian Bitches. She played Cricket in that. My Name is Earl. He's the one he shot in the ass with a BB. And, like, that's a great episode of My Name is Earl. She is a good actor. I could think of many things that she's in the Guardians films. And she gets such the short stick for being introduced as a member of the comedy troupe that's going to be slipping into the roles in each of these things. Like, I feel bad. She only shows up in the, I guess, sophisticated Elliot fantasy. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it is, and she plays, and she's great in it. She also shows up in the deleted Elliot fantasy, which, again, we're going to broach on because it deserves a full platter to talk about the deleted movie of this film, as my mother called it when she's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Just some deleted scene from Bedazzled." And then 20 minutes later, she's like, "Was that a deleted movie that you watched?" "Yes, mother, it was Wake Up Ron Burgundy." How prescient of you. But I feel bad. But that group of people, they goad him into going over to talk to her. And, like, that's the only reason. Like, he's clearly not acting in the best interest of humanity with the fact that he knows she broke up. He knows the exact time that they spoke together for the first time. Like, that stuff, it's a little bit unhinged, right? I think that everyone here could agree to that. But he's not doing the grosser version. Like, he believes that he's owed something from society, but he doesn't feel like, with Allison specifically, I've had my be a good guy to this woman card punched 10 times, so I've earned my fucking relationship with her.
No, but he does expect that she has, like, locked in who he is after that conversation, just like he did with her, right?
Right.
Like, he expects that much, which is still too much as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And it's a huge trope being used in movies at the time. Look at something like Can't Hardly Wait. Just to throw a movie out there. And it's also tangentially connected to Vacation, which I haven't given you the credit for mentioning National Lampoon's Vacation. Also directed by Harold Ramis. Siegen's pretty good at this, you guys. Like, I'm admitting it here on the show. Also, just breaking this up real second before we get back to the point. I had a friend who called that movie Summer Vacation, and that pissed me off to no end. I just need to mention it, because it's like, it's just National Lampoon's Vacation, or Vacation. He's like, yeah, but it takes over the summer. I call it Summer Vacation. And I'm like, yeah, but nobody knows what you're talking about. They probably think you're talking about another movie. Or
I was going to say, wasn't that its own movie at some point?
There's Summer Rental with John Candy and Aykroyd, which is great. I love Summer Rental. But then, like, it's just confusing. I'm talking about the Chevy Chase Vacation movie. Oh, so you should probably just call it Vacation, right? Like, let's just be honest here. Like, sorry. But that's the thing that does tend to happen with Harold Ramis films. I promise I'll get back to where we were before. And the fact that he decides to make these movies and he has these ideas, but then they change so much in the process. So this film wanting originally
sometimes they're like Stripes and they just become a whole other movie by the second half.
By the middle half, yep. Or their Caddyshack, which originally was about the caddies, but then Chevy Chase and Bill Murray and all them were the people that were getting the reactions from the audience in the test screening. So they cut out pretty much every caddy story except for Danny's in a movie called Caddyshack. So this film originally trying to be this movie that really, like, paints him in this negative picture before, to the point that, like, he would be willing to make a deal with the devil to make all of his dreams come true. A devil who comes to him in the form of a beautiful woman and finally gives him some sort of acknowledgement that he exists in this world. Like without that build, here's the thing. We've talked about Groundhog Day on this very show. We did a very special episode on Groundhog's Day. And this is kind of our very special episode on Bedazzled. We're probably never going to go and do a very special episode. This is what it is. And there was a time where I said to you, we were discussing with your brother about the film Bedazzled, and he echoed a lot of the same statements that you're saying, that there's just not enough that you believe at the end of the day he's become better or learned any lesson. And my response to that is, yeah, but in terms of Harold Ramis, I can draw a direct line through from Groundhog's Day to Bedazzled, and the type of like lessons he's trying to impart in his art, like the stories he's trying to teach people. But let's look at a movie like Groundhog's Day and the fact that in one day we learn all that we need to learn about Phil so that we understand why he's better at the end of that movie, right? He's no longer selfish. He's taking the time to learn about other people. He's actually using his position in life to make people better. This movie, in the beginning, Brendan Fraser was basically this insular, like, proto form of an incel type of dude. And at the end of the movie, he's still basically that, but he's confident and no longer wears his glasses. It's like he got bitten by a radioactive confident guy. and it,
yeah,
like I don't like it is a really interesting lesson that he learns, right? Because he thinks, oh, if only I were rich and powerful, then women would like me. And that's not the case. Being rich and powerful, his wife is cheating on him. All right, so then what if I'm sensitive? Women always say they want a sensitive guy, right? But so he wishes to be sensitive and he's smart. That's one of my favorite parts in this movie. That's what will keep this film from going too low in any tier list that I create. Because at the end of this, as a reminder to people who listened to last week's episode, we're going to be finishing our Brendan Fraser tier list by placing Bedazzled on there. And I'm very excited about that. But that joke where he's like, I wish I were the most sensitive man in the world. Wait. The most emotionally sensitive man in the world. Like, that is good writing. Like, that is, when you talk about wasted potential, lines like that are proof of your argument. Because there was someone in the room who was thinking ahead about, like, what language means and how the devil would try to trick you, right? Because that's... that's the whole thing of it. I mean, I want to now, fuck it. It's my show. It's our show. Sorry, Sejin. But I want to talk about the time that I went to a Bible study and was offered the hypothetical, what if the devil asked you for $20? And I said, I'd probably give the devil $20 if I had $20. Because I don't know how the devil would be trying to trick me in borrowing $20 from me.
Well, that's a weird question because because money is a man-made thing.
Yeah, right. So what use would the devil have for?
Like money is not a concept handed down from God. So like, who cares? like the more important thing is your like your moral wallet, right? Like, if he was saying like, hey, give me like 20 soul bucks, that'd be a different conversation.
Well, the way that I said, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting, this is a youth pastor that I'm talking to. I'm at a Bible study. It was that time in my life where I was exploring religion because a friend of mine had gotten really wrapped up into it. And yeah, I'm like, I wanted to be supportive of him. So I was going to Bible studies. I was trying to learn the things that he decided to base his life around. And I've definitely talked about it in the show before, but I don't know if I've told this particular conversation. And it feels related to Bedazzled because I'm asked, what if the devil asked you to borrow $20? I'm like, I'd probably give the devil $20. Honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I think a bigger question would be, a better question in that question of what you're saying is, what if the devil asked you to help him move? Like, then that's like a real commitment, right? Like, that's your time and actual effort.
It's also my hell, so
yeah, right, exactly. It's completely believable that the devil would come up to you and say, like, hey, Siege, can you help me move? It's just like a 5-story walk up. I got a couple of couches.
Yeah, but I know you wanted to go and see Thunderbolts today, but instead you're gonna help me move. Oh,
yeah,
shit,
right.
Okay.
Just you fucking asshole. God damn it, the devil. But it's like,
I'll get you, devil.
So I said that, I'm like, if he asked me to move, but also same thing, I would help the devil move until I realized, like, oh, like, I'm not actually helping the devil move. I'm stealing from this house. The devil has asked me to assist him in stealing. Like, at the end of the day, based upon the preachings of mostly Christianity, but like a lot of religions, that nobody should be above like redemption or like a second chance, right? If someone repents for their sins, they are supposed to be forgiven. That's the whole reason that Jesus
not
died
every
on the
religion
cross.
believes that. I want to make
Yeah,
sure that we're clear.
not
There are definitely
every-
certainly religions out there that don't believe in the concept of confession.
Yes, that I know that's true, but it's a lot of Western religions definitely do. Would you make that a concession as to what I'm saying?
I think it's wholly kind of a Catholic thing, but yeah.
Well, Christianity does it too, right? As long as you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you're pretty much good.
Yeah.
Like it's, I mean, that's what made me step away. Is like, I'm worried about your soul. Would you please accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior?
Like Judaism doesn't believe.
Yeah, Judaism does not
believes
believe in that
guilt,
at all.
but it does not believe in confession. Basically, your whole life is your confessional in Judaism.
You have to live with your guilt, and that is your confession. The fact that you feel guilt, yeah, it's that. But that idea, right? So I'm in a Christian Bible study at the time where he asked that. So it's like, yeah, no, the devil comes up to me, asks me to move. Why would I not trust the devil? Because the devil exists only to deceive us, is what the answer, the ultimate answer of that was. And it's like, that seems like a bad rap for the devil. I'm not gonna lie to you, but like,
But also, that's not the devil. But my issue is, even if that is your held belief, that example is not a good example of the devil deceiving you, asking for $20. That's not deceitful.
Oh,
he's giving you a specific. In fact, that is the opposite of deceitful. That is the most clear that he could possibly be. I need $20. Here's $20.
Right,
End of transaction.
So can I borrow $20? I'll pay you back. Devil never paid me back, deceitful bastard. Like, yeah, but it was $20. It's not like he asked me to borrow 20 soul bucks, as Sejan brought up. What maybe my favorite thing that we've added to the lexicon of the world is soul bucks. Sejan, real credit for you, buddy. But like, also, it's not like the devil. If the devil asked me for $20,000, yo, devil, you're the devil. You know I don't got $20,000.
It'd be more like, would you go help the devil collect $20 from someone that owes it to him? Yeah. Would you be willing to do that? No, because there's a good chance that person doesn't actually owe the devil $20, and I'm going to be party to something I don't want to be party of. That's an interesting thought experiment.
Plus, also wonder what the type of person where the devil's like, I need some backup to get my money from this guy. I don't know if I want to deal with that person. I'm going to be honest. There's a little bit of self-preservation there. Devil, I will sit down with you. I will buy you a coffee at Starbucks. But when you're like, yo, you want to come along with me, help me get this $20 from this guy? Oh, you're afraid of this person? Nah, I think we're good. How about we meet next Saturday for breakfast?
But Devin, I need your help. She's a time vampire.
You son of a bitch, how did you know time vampires? My one weakness, the devil. Sejan, what do we do with this show? But yes, so Elizabeth Hurley's devil character. I think at the end of the day, she does ultimately like Elliot on some level. And if she were to get his soul, when he goes to hell, he would probably get some preferential treatment. He's not going to be Hitler in a tutu getting a pineapple shoved up his ass. He might even
because I don't think that he's on the same level as Hitler, right?
No, of course not. But I'm saying, like, okay, he's not going to be the peeper getting fucked by the bird demon. There's a little bit more parody there.
Stupid movie. But Bedazzled, yeah. So I feel like that's it. To your point about them being friendly, totally. I think this movie. I think it's one of the few things that this movie does actually establish really well is the relationship between Elliot and the devil and the ways in which it evolves from transactional to actual like philosophical conversation. Like there's a really good relationship there, and to the point where I don't know. There was a part of me that thought that he ended up with Elizabeth Hurley at the end of this movie. Not this last time that I watched it, but like I remember there being a point in my life where I thought the story of this movie was that he ended up with her in some regard. Like essentially, she was just always the one on his arm. I forgot basically about the whole Allison of it all, right?
Which is not surprising.
In a weird way, I kind of, in a weird way, I kind of wish that was the movie. I think it would be a little bit more powerful and impactful for women in general, but also for the movie itself, if like by his side the whole time was this temptress that was also like having these really deep, intelligent conversations with him about life and morals and shit like that. I just basically that is what makes this movie as good as it actually is. As much as I may not like certain aspects of this film, and as much as I've been very down on it this whole time, I want to make it very clear: this is a well-made film in general. It is well acted. It is well directed. It's got hilarious moments. It's just that it's just disjointed to all fuck for me. And part of that is, as Devin mentioned earlier, which we should really dig into a little bit more, is like interference from studio, but not is it really interference? Because as we've mentioned, Ramis was never one to shy away from making a better film if the numbers told him it was a better film. You know what I mean?
Right, but you know, so you know that, right? You're in the studio. You know that Harold Ramis is going to listen to what you say. Do you tell him everything? Like, knowing that it might affect the film in a negative way? For the record, I don't think that's what happened here. I think it is specifically with somebody like Harold Ramis, who both of us would admittedly say is the type of person who will listen. He was he was smart. Harold Ramis was a very smart director. I think we can look at many of his films and agree. I don't think Caddyshack would be what Caddyshack is had it just been a story about a bunch of fucking kids who work at the Caddyshack at this golf course. But
I think for the purposes of this conversation, I think it's important to put a very specific caveat on all this. He was a very smart studio director.
Yes. And that's exactly what I was going to say.
He also was a very smart director in general. As an artist, I love Harold Ramis, and there's some stuff that he does that I think is extremely intelligent that people still ape to this day. Mm-hmm. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about right now is the ways in which he is also a very good studio director. He knows how to work with the system to get the product he wants on screen, which is why he's able to make movies like Analyze This and Bedazzled and Stripes, and he knows how to play the game and get his product out there in front of people in a pretty damn good way, despite having some fucking weird concepts to them. I mean, can you imagine being pitched Groundhog Day by a no-name? It can't be a no-name. You need to be Harold Ramis at that point in order to pitch Groundhog Day to a studio, right?
Exactly. And he knew exactly what he needed to do to not get blacklisted. Not as blacklisted as you would in, like, McCarthyism, but the fact where, like, I'm going to make this movie, and I know it's a bit out of bounds, but it's not going to be the type of movie where you're, like, completely done with me. You're going to still want to work with me regardless of the outcome. Like, Multiplicity. Yeah. He makes a film like Multiplicity, and the fact that he's still able to make movies after it, not that Multiplicity was, like... I don't know how well Multiplicity did, but that movie is out of fucking pocket. I love that. It
caught some flack for being as weird as it was / kind of mean. But like to give like some other to give some counter examples just to kind of show what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Nowadays you would look at something like the Russo brothers and you would say they are really good studio directors.
Definitely.
And people always ask, like, and you know what always happens with studio directors that don't have necessarily the artistic chops to back it up, or at least the artistic resume to back it up. People always ask, why do these people keep getting work? It's because they know how to play with the system. The studios like working with them because they know that they can have a good working relationship with them. Even if the movie doesn't churn out $1 billion at the end, although with the Russo brothers, there's always a chance it might. Not every time, but there's a chance that it will, right? So, like, you take that risk and you bring them on because they're easy to work with. They've shown that they can make $1 or $2, bucks off of a thing. So, like, the Russo brothers would be my example of a current directing duo that, like, can put out a really good studio movie. Not necessarily the most artistic film, right? I don't know if there is anybody that I could point to right now. I guess like Tarantino, right? Scorsese, those guys are kind of the big wigs in that regard, as far as they know how the system works. But Scorsese kind of plays outside of the system. Coppola plays so far out of the system.
So far outside of the system.
Shit, right?
I can't believe that Megalopolis is just, he's like, I don't want it available anywhere. Like, okay, but you were like, this is my baby. I want everyone to see this movie. And now he's like, no one will see it. We will not release it anyway.
He's being a baby because of how poorly it did. That's the short and long of it. I'm sick of defending Francis Ford Coppola after Megalopolis.
No, I don't think you've ever really defended him that well. If this is your
I don't mean me personally. I mean like society, like listening to people try and talk about like Francis Ford Coppola making, The Godfather in early in his career, and then Megalopolis possibly being the end of his career, and people talking about how like don't remember him for Megalopolis. Remember him for this and this and this. It's like, no, I don't think we should forget about how fucking the hubris of Megalopolis.
Oh, I will not. I'll remember him for something like Apocalypse Now, which, sure, it's a great movie, but he doesn't need to remake it every 5 years, unless that's the Faustian bargain he made. Multiplicity, by the way, which I would love to do a very special episode or time capsule episode on Multiplicity. It's not going to happen until 2026 if we do it at all, but I will mention this. That was the perfect example for me to bring up, because that film had a budget of $45 million estimated. Its worldwide gross is $21 million.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
that was
not a well-received film. Like I said, it caught a lot of flack, specifically for representations of those with disabilities and things like that.
Yeah, 4 is definitely he's something to talk about someday. But that'll another. But again, Harold Ramis, he's a good director, and he directs this very well. I believe that he chooses Brendan Fraser probably because seeing his work on Airheads. We've talked about that so many times because Harold Ramis shows up as in one of the best roles in Airheads. I love that scene where he's like, "Who do you take in Van Halen?" Well, Sammy Hagar, he's a cop. Like, it's so good. It's so good. And Lemmy he does a good job here, right? Lemmy is God. So this film, right? So I guess Elizabeth Hurley can't be God because Lemmy is God. He learned that 5 years earlier. No, I'm just being an asshole. But it's this. Their relationship is what sells this movie, and it is, and it's kind of weird when you think about that because their scenes together make up only a very small fraction of this film. But she
just comes in and out. That's what I'm saying. Is I just wanted more of Elizabeth Hurley and him on screen together, right? I mean, like, first of all, I love Elizabeth Hurley. I think she's a phenomenal actress, and I think that she's really really smart about the ways in which she knows that a role like this is her body, right? Is part of the whole bit.
She's in on the joke. She's in on the joke.
She is in on it, right? That, take that with a grain of salt. It's a shitty way in which a person can be treated on a set, right? And so there has to be. It's a really dangerous role in that regard. Not dangerous in I think that a light's gonna fall on her head and kill her, but dangerous in emotionally and mentally to be portraying a role like that. You have to really trust the person that you're acting up against. You need to really trust the director, and for all intents and purposes, everything that I know about Elizabeth Hurley, she's always been very smart about that, very intelligent about that. And so it shows in this movie, the ways in which she knows where the line is between what she's willing to do to use herself as the bit, but then also she handles some of the heavier lifting in terms of the philosophical concepts of what this film is trying to get to. She is kind of the delivery method for the moral of this story.
Definitely, yeah. She is, as much as she is used for her body in this film, which, again, there's been plenty of interviews where she has admitted that was part of it, or her co-stars or people working on the film has admitted it. She is not a prop the same way that Allison is. She's a big part of this film. And I don't, as much as it's so weird, the Gabriel Cases of it all, playing cellmate, and we're just going to call him an angel. Are you okay with that concession that he might not be God?
I think he's an angel. No, I think he's an angel in as much as Elizabeth Hurley is a devil, if that makes sense.
Now you get that. You don't think that she's the big guy. You don't think she's the morning star, the fallen angel, Archangel Michael. I mean Gabriel.
Lucifer.
Sorry. No, but wasn't his
you got
name
there eventually.
But what was his name? Something before he became Lucifer? I don't know. I didn't. The fallen angel.
Pretty sure Lucifer was always Lucifer.
Right.
There are other angels that fell.
Yeah, Lucifer's fall. You're right. I'm sorry. I don't know why I was thinking of other things. The Morning Star is what threw me off. I apologize. But, I don't know. I also feel bad for Elizabeth Hurley because of the whole thing that happened with Hugh Grant and the fact that once they separated, she was kind of left behind by society, mostly because she stood by him when he got arrested in 1995 for soliciting a sex worker. And she's the one who suffered that. He goes on to have a huge career in the 2000s, and she's what, she's in Serving Sarah, maybe, after this movie? And I can't remember anything she's done after that film.
Secretly love Serving Sarah.
Oh,
phenomenal.
How would you not?
Matthew Perry.
It's a Matthew Perry,
Bruce
and you got
Campbell.
Bruce fucking Campbell in there. Yeah.
Bruce Campbell.
You like
literally
Serving
like
Sarah?
Three-fister. It's a wild movie.
Fork found in kitchen, Sejin. Like, gee, knock me over with a goddamn feather. Yeah, it's a good movie, though. And I love Elizabeth Hurley. I really do love Elizabeth Hurley. I'm excited, as Will has challenged us to do, for when we finally look at Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because she is so good in that movie. And so to see her in this movie, that is essentially a two-hander with a Greek chorus, and what her and Brendan Fraser are doing is exceptional. And even the scenes where she's not with Brendan Fraser, like where she's the, Van Halen teacher, basically, just to stay on that line, where you're hot for teacher. I love that speech, where she's like, make sure you watch a lot of TV and don't neglect your video games. Yeah, and then the spanking thing to Elliot. Their relationship is very interesting. You know what I would parallel it with, and this is just fucking completely out of pocket and super Devin Decker, Lisa to Gary and Wyatt in Weird Science.
Yeah.
Because like initially she's using her feminine wiles and everything, but then like she talks to him and she realizes how much she actually likes the guy. So then she's like, no, I just want to like be your friend. Like, I get that I want to be your friend, and yes, I'm going to steal your soul, but that means that when you come to hell, I'm going to be your buddy. You're going to be friends with the devil in hell. And that's probably going to afford you certain luxuries. I have to imagine that. And maybe not for the eternity that you're burning in hell, but at least for like the first 150 years. You're going to be in the favor of that immortal being until they get bored with you. But could you ever really, truly get bored with Brendan Fraser?
Look, man, you're talking to a guy that once told a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, that hell didn't actually sound that bad, and he almost had to pull the car over to like catch his breath.
Wow. I mean, yeah, let's talk about more origins of Devin and Sejin. I'm kind of right there with you, buddy. Like, if I end up there, I think I'd be okay with it. Right? Like, do you have to be on your best behavior in heaven? Like, can you swear in heaven? Like, if you say fucking heaven, what happens to you?
What if my heaven is doing something like ridiculously like off color, right? Like, what if what if I want to go to heaven so that like I could do like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Like
right, what about rock and roll fucking heaven, baby? Like, is it a different address? Is it like, oh, that's the bad part of heaven? She's heading for the cheating side of heaven.
Let's talk about some rock and roll, Dev. Actually,
this is a good time. All right, so how do you want to approach this? Do you want to start with the deleted scene, or do you want to just like rapid fire through the other wishes and what they represent?
Oh, I think it's a good idea to rapid fire through the other wishes first, so that we could then talk about the deleted wish.
Yeah. Okay. So his first wish makes it. Actually, I need to look something up while I do this. Before I do, I just need to know how much. I'm going to McDonald's website. I want to know how much a Big Mac and a large Coke costs today, because in the 25 years since
I'm going to say $7.
Yeah, that sounds about right, right? Can I just like look at the menu? Big Mac with a $1 minimum purchase for free when you download the McDonald's app. So you could get it for like $2 if it's your first time ordering it. I'm just gonna Google how much is a Big Mac, because the world is terrible, and it's like, download the app. How much is a Big Mac?
Can we use your location?
No,
please.
That is the exact thing that came up. A new report from CashNet USA reveals that the average cost of a Big Mac across the United States now ranges between $4.67 and $6.72. Now, around here, a large soda is $1.39. So for the $3.47 he pays for his first wish, which the first wish is definitely, I'd like a Big Mac and a large Coke. Though also, he hasn't signed the contract at that point, so would that count as one of the wishes? I really wish. My saddest thing about Bedazzled is that we don't get a better look at the contract. I would love to look better at the contract and just see all of the things that are written there. Because Harold Ramis is friends with Dan Aykroyd, and I know that Dan Aykroyd is the guy who puts in all the crazy technical jargon into any of the scripts the two of them have worked on together, but you gotta imagine Ramis is putting some fun things into that contract. Sorry. But yeah, so wish number 1, be it a wish or not, he wishes for, kind of being a pithy, snarky asshole, a Big Mac and a large Coke. And she gets him on a bus, drives him to a McDonald's, orders him the Big Mac and large Coke, and then makes him pay for it. But technically, she got him that Big Mac and large Coke, Jim.
Yeah.
Like, there you go. There's your.
And that's the joke. That's
devil.
the bit, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the make a wish. It's monkey's paw, right? It's the old trope.
Yeah. So that's
the oldest trope.
So that's an important thing to know about, because that's before he even believes that she's the devil. Because from there they get into the Lamborghini Diablo, which is chef's kiss in terms of just like mise-en-scène world building, that she's got a Lamborghini Diablo. And they drive to her club in Oakland, the DV8, which is fantastic, right? Like, there's so much Harold Ramis in this fucking movie, and I love it. And then he finally believes she's the devil. She's like, oh, I guess I could have gone with this form. And she twirls around in a firestorm, looks like Red-Skinned Devil with the horns and like a nice tailored suit. She's like, but it's a little Halloween costume. And that's the first time Elliot has been speaking with Elizabeth Hurley, claiming to be the devil, for like 15 minutes of this film's runtime before he believes that she's the devil. And he makes his first wish. It's the Big Mac and the Coke. So now let's
he goes along with it because she's pretty, Deb.
Yeah, exactly. That's yes. And they do that. They do build that he would totally like put up with a potentially mentally unstable person just because she's an attractive woman and giving him attention. And that might be just why he's kind of a despicable character to me in the beginning. Is just how it's, I don't know, he's good at his job.
But it speaks to the kind of comedy that Ramis comes from.
True.
In that
that's true.
We don't need any deeper reason for him to do this than to put a scantily clad woman in front of him. And in a lot of ways, we don't need to do anything to get anybody else to get butts in seats, except to put a scantily clad woman on the poster, right? Like, so like you end up with Elizabeth Hurley front and center on the poster, leaning over, right? You know, you do get Brendan Fraser in the way, quote unquote, but that's just the tease, right? And so there's a weird element to this movie in that Elliot is being, dragged around by this woman, and the reason that he's allowing it is just because of her looks. There's a lot to be said about who went to go see this movie and why.
The why of it. I mean, I'll admit, the first time I saw this film, I was on vacation, and it was playing on the, like, resort's in-house television movie network. Like, every 3 hours, they would play Bedazzled. So I never saw it from the beginning. I always saw it from, like, the middle. And I liked from the middle because I didn't see just that really kind of terrible opening. Here's an interesting thing about Elizabeth Hurley. As she becomes more comfortable with Elliot becomes more comfortable with her, she kind of puts on more clothing. Like, it's way less revealing what she's wearing when she knows that she's going to interact with him. Like, when she's the meter maid, like, that's just, like, it's perfect. I really enjoy that. I really like that. And then at the end, when he does ultimately free his soul, she's back to wearing something like a really, like, high-cut skirt, because on some level, she'd like to try to deceive him again, even though he bested her that one time. It's good. Okay, so the first wish that he makes is to be very powerful, very, very powerful, very rich, and to have Allison be his wife. And that's where we get, I mean, all of these are problematic, right? There's not one of these scenarios that is not problematic through 2025 lenses. We're just going to say that from the beginning. Because he wakes up in a Spanish villa. He has long, curly black hair. He has a Ricky Ricardo mustache. And he speaks a Spanish, which is admittedly... You want to talk about one of the reasons why I celebrate Brendan Fraser. he does all of that for real. It's not overdubbed. It is him learning those lines in that other language and delivering them. And I respect that. I legitimately respect an actor who does that type of thing. Certainly with AI now, I don't know if anyone would ever do that again. Talking about Adrian Brody.
They were, yeah, I mean, I was like, they were even speaking basically English just with an accent, and they didn't want to learn it. So, yeah. I mean, it could still win you an Oscar, so who gives a shit?
Exactly, right? Nothing fucking matters anymore in this world.
So what's the hook being, right, but what's the bit?
So the bit is his power and money come from the fact that he is a Colombian drug lord. He's basically woken up as Pablo Escobar. And I really like
all morality plays, before we get too deep into this, all morality plays by their very nature establish a hard line of what is good and what is bad, right? Yes. Like, it's one of the biggest reasons that that we don't see much of that anymore we don't see just straight out morality plays being done like colloquially for people anymore, right? Like, we don't see every man get put on often unless it's a very specific circumstance in which we are going to do the dramaturgy on this and talk about why this is important in 2025. You don't just put on every man just to sell tickets, right?
You're not selling tickets with every man. You have to have
this. Not that there's not, right? It's not that there's not like saccharine morality bullshit in the stuff we consume. That is still present. That is still there. It's just a much more clever form of it than this. This movie, by trying to ape this, is going to draw some hard lines about what it considers to be good, bad, evil. Like there's some things that it's going to make some choices about. This is probably the least offensive out of them, I would have to say. The most offensive part being that they put him in like some weird like Trumpian tan makeup.
Well, it's that. It's also the fact that like they do technically he's like appropriating another culture in a way, right? Where like you don't have, Neil Diamond shouldn't be the jazz singer anymore. Neil Diamond shouldn't have been the fucking jazz singer when he played the jazz singer. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, no, right. That's an extreme pull, but a good one. Yeah. I think that I don't think that there would be anything wrong with him doing this today, as long as he didn't do essentially the blackface, the brown face that he puts on. If it was just him just being white, because we know that there are white people that exist in those cultures as well, there's no reason that he needs to be like done up like this. But yeah, like I think him speaking the actual lines of Spanish, it's actually him speaking it. So I mean, like, we can't deny him that. And like, the joke is supposed to be that he has found himself in a shit situation, and like, drug lords are people that exist in the world. It's not like we're making up like fantasies about like this thing. So I think there's enough truth in the real world to ground that. The worst part of this for me is the brown face. Like, that's what I mean though, is that you get to see that and then some in some of these other wishes.
And we're gonna look at this, and just to armchair like make this movie 2025, he would become Walter White. That would be the white drug lord that would give him the power and the riches. But then, look at how Skylar is treated in Breaking Bad. She is still the most hated character in a film, in a television series full of actual murderers. People don't like Skylar. And that says something about, the troll type character that Elliot Richards is in the beginning of this film. But yes, so he is a Colombian drug lord. And on top of that, marriage doesn't necessarily mean that Allison is in love with him. So in addition to doing something illegal so that he can be rich and powerful, he is also married to a woman who is being unfaithful to him. So he has Allison, but really only as a prize, not as a partner. Which, wow, that was way more articulate than I thought it was going to be in that moment.
It was way more articulate than the movie is.
Yeah. And I will say the last bit that really does work is when he has to talk to the Russians and he speaks Russian. He's like, of course I speak Russian as well. Like, the best part about this film is Elliot's awareness of that monkey's paw biblical genie, which is not what I mean, but like genies as they were originally written, that it's everything's like, be careful what you wish for. Every wish has that sort of unintended side effect that you need to be aware of, right? Because there has to be a payment in some form. So that's wish 1. He's Colombian, he's rich, he's powerful, but he's a drug lord. And Allison is his wife, but she is not faithful to him. She does not love him. It's a little bit telenovela-y, right? If we're talking about like the SNL skit of it all, is the fact that they're basically doing a telenovela in a lot of ways. That is my favorite set of Orlando Jones, Toby Huss, and Paul Adelson, though, as his little lackeys in the drug thing. Because they don't like him. Like, it's very much he's our boss, but we just put up with him. So they get to have a lot of fun moments. And Orlando Jones as Esteban just doing cocaine in the background is so good.
I mean, Orlando Jones is phenomenal in this movie. He really like is. We've praised him before in our Evolution episode, but just to bring it up again,
he's wonderful. He's absolutely wonderful. So then we get to wish number 2, where Elliot makes the distinction of wanting to be the most emotionally sensitive man in the world, and Allison is in love with me. That is the second wish. This one.
The problematic nature of this one is...
honestly, from a creative standpoint, like, being the most sensitive person in the world would not just mean that you're, like, cry when you see the sunset. Like, you might, like, she could have said something to him and that offend him when it's, like, not being... Like, the fact of the matter is that the term sensitive is such an open-ended thing. So what bothers me from this one, like creative standpoint, is the fact that they only focus on that type of sensitivity that is represented by, like I don't know, a girl's first college boyfriend in a 1960s college film. If that makes sense. We're talking that. But no, you continue. Say it is, because I have other...
He's over emotional, right?
Yeah.
Like that is the big hook. But as I was saying before, this draws a line in the sand about what is considered to be bad, and like and this idea that he is too in touch with his emotions is like that's the bad part. Just keeping score. That's all.
Well, I guess where that one becomes more problematic for me is his reaction after coming back from it. Some of the lessons that are taught in it, like Paul Adelstein's, I think that this is very much screenwriting 101 of the wishes. I feel like this one is the least explored, which is a little disappointing because you could have some real fun with it. But then they also kind of make sure that please mitigate your expectations for most sensitive man in the world, because we're only going to focus on one very hyper-specific thing. But, like, the callbacks to, like, beach bullies and Paul Adelson kicking sand in his face is just super funny. Like, that is very funny and well done. But the fact that it does sort of strengthen that stereotype that women prefer bad boys, so, like, the whole sensitivity thing is not really what they want, that's pretty toxic in that moment. But then, to top it all off, his reaction when he comes back from the wish of being like, I don't think women know what they want at all, right? I was the sensitive. They all claim to want sensitive people, but then she still went with that asshole. It's just like, ooh, that one kind of hit harder than I think you meant it to, when we look at what we were being told by cinema and media at the time.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, we've never shied away from the fact that Harold Ramis and that era of filmmaking was part of the problem for us, for us ourselves, even. But like the ways in which we took in a lot of shitty, toxic stuff from that style of comedy, from Harold Ramis himself, and from Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, as we mentioned, like they were not great mentors or role models when it came to the ways that we view the world, right? And luckily, we have gotten to a point in our lives where we've been able to reflect on that, maturely and take what we can and leave behind, hopefully, all of the shitty stuff. But, like, this movie is a Harold Ramis movie to a fucking T. Oh, yeah. Now, we haven't really talked about this much, but we have mentioned this is a remake, right? And the original one it's Raquel Welch, I believe, is not the devil, because the
No,
devil's
she's
actually played by Peter
Allison.
Cook, an actual a man.
Yeah.
But Raquel Welch basically becomes what Elizabeth Hurley slash who plays Allison? Oh my God, why
Oh,
can't I think
what
of
is
her
her?
name right now?
I'll get it right here. Frances O'Connor.
Frances O'Connor basically fills both of those roles in that, like, she plays the wife or the partner in all of the wishes, but at the same time she's also scantily clad in a lot of it, and like a lot of the draw of that movie in at the time is raunchy comedy, right? So we have been laying a lot at the feet of Ramis, and right, I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but we also do need to remember that there is source material here that he is drawing from, right? And that source material is just as laden, if not worse, with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I mean, this film takes it in a different direction because that one's more of just like a dark comedy. This one tries to just be comedy, which is
Yeah.
certainly how you would remake a film like that. Also, a film that did not necessarily succeed when it first came out. At least this movie, Bedazzled, it makes double its budget. Budget of $45 million, and it takes away $90 million worldwide. Better received internationally than domestically, which I also totally get, because, you know, if you're an international audience, you get to laugh at the foolishness of this American. And
Yeah, also, I mean, to be frank, there's also not as many hangups about sexuality and outside of the US on, portrayed on screen. So like, it's a lot easier of a sell. I know for a fact I was not allowed to see this movie in theaters, and it was because it was going to be sexy. Like, because there was going to be, I was not allowed to see this movie in theaters. I ended up getting to see this movie only because it was shown at many experiences like this, because it was going to be shown at like a birthday party sleepover. Like, I was allowed to watch this movie, but like, I had to ask permission. And if I had asked to rent it myself, no. But the fact that I was going to be with a group of people, so basically, I was basically not going to be able to get up to shenanigans with it. Like my family, my family had their moments where they were like, no, that we're gonna throw the blanket over the TV for this scene, that kind of shit.
My dad trying to cover my eyes when we went to go see Starship Troopers. That is my example of that. But let's get back to the wishes, because up next is my borrowed for this episode of the Brendan Fraser Cinematic Universe. Because
Nice.
wish number 3 is to be a professional athlete, be a pro basketball player. And we get to see a scene from Fletch. And it's wonderful seeing a scene from Fletch where Brendan Fraser is Fletch. But he also becomes this monster of a basketball player, playing for the Diablos, which also, in a bit of world building, is a real basketball team in their world, because he has a Diablos like sticker in his cubicle. I love that. I absolutely love that she didn't like bring him to some alternate universe where that's a team. That like that's a basketball team he follows. The fact that they're playing against the Shirts, I don't know how to describe that. But the Shirts seem based on the Seattle Supersonics, who was my favorite team in the 90s because of
Nice.
NBA Jam. Purely just because of NBA Jam. They were who I always played as. Kemp and Detlef
See, I like the
Schrempf
Hornets.
and Peyton. Oh, I'd love to play NBA Jam with you sometime, Siegin, now that we're having this discussion. But that's,
They did a remake of it somewhere in the 2010s somewhere.
yeah,
didn't they?
there's
Like
definitely
2015-ish?
we could probably find one and play it. But that's something for after this episode. So he is this 7'6" behemoth of a basketball player. He is number 34, and honestly, he plays the game like he's 11 feet tall, Siegin.
Yeah.
Thank you for
But
not
he's-
trying
but
to
he's
be
also
Orlando
like-
Jones.
But he's also like a fucking grizzly bear, right? Like, this is the scene where he's just like, "Rah," like basically just like roaring at everybody.
He does that scene is also really good. There's some like crazy like things in this movie that just do not make sense. One of them is in this scene. We didn't talk about the other one where they're at the brewery at the beginning, and everybody at the table has a different type of glass. And I'm all for, like, found furniture in a restaurant, but Paul Adelstein having a mug, friggin' Toby Huss having a Pilsner, Miriam Shore having an actual pint glass, while Orlando Jones is drinking out of a bottle, but there's a pitcher of beer at the table. It is so out of pocket, that scene. I don't know what the fuck is supposed to be going on.
I mean,
there.
that's a purposeful move, right? And to me, that is an early jab at hipster culture just like, oh yeah, you go to these restaurants and they don't even serve you food on a plate; it just comes out on a wooden board.
Yeah, like it's just like so that one. But then in this one, they give.
Oh, we don't keep our glasses; we just go scavenging for them every day in the trash.
Yeah, we don't want to wash glasses; we just break them at the end of the night and then blow new glasses.
We have a full-time glass blower in the back. It's great.
It's why your Bud Light costs $17, but you're gonna taste the difference. But yeah, so. But then the other, like, completely out of pocket is they give his stats for the game, and he has scored 104 points with 45 assists, which let's just call that right there only 2-pointers that he's assisting on, right? So that's 90 additional points. That means that the Diablos in this game would have scored 194 points during this single game of basketball. And that just makes no sense, because also at the end of the game, they showed they won 138 to like 35.
A little bit more reasonable. Still pretty crazy. 138 is still a pretty crazy score, but it's not too out of the realm of possibility.
It's certainly a crazy score in the year 2000. Nowadays, where each of the teams has 100 points going into the second half. Like, basketball is so crazy. But the other thing about him being this professional athlete is that he's not very bright. He's not hyper intelligent as the jock, which is, I guess, part of the trade-off. But then he has another problem, Sejin, and this is where this one gets a little bit problematic. Well, actually, it gets problematic for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is that Allison's character here is a journalist, and apparently she just lives to sleep with these athletes. That's all she cares about. And that's kind of a poor portrayal of a female.
Of women, specifically in the realm of sports broadcasting, infamously like a fucking minefield for women.
Yeah. So that's not great. And then, but the other problem, in addition to him not having much going on upstairs, is that he also doesn't have much going on downstairs. He got a tiny little penis, and he shows it to Allison, and she recoils in horror, and she's like, no, I just gotta write a small article. Oh, well, maybe we could get together again some other time. No, I got a big story on the NFL that I gotta fit in. Gross. Just super gross. But the tying of his masculinity to the fact that he got a little penis despite being a 7'6" behemoth, it's not great. And also the stupidity of it. Like, it's a poor portrayal of people who are in sports to keep going with that stereotype that they have no intelligence. I mean, I think in terms of comedy, like, he has this pager that was given to him by Elizabeth Hurley, the devil. And if a wish is not going the way he thinks it should be going, or he wants to bail out, all he has to do is dial 666. And when you see his locker in the locker room, that is written literally on every surface in his locker. Pager number 666. It's written everywhere. So then when he finally gets the pager after learning he has a tiny dink, he grabs it and he goes 555 and it's wrong. And then he does 777 and it's wrong. And then he finally looks in his locker. Oh, that's right. He picks it up 999 because he has the freaking Post-it note upside down. It is just like, it is perfect, like, done in 3 sort of comedy, right? It's the thing that Harold Ramis is just a master of, but it is it is a kind of toxic thing because it really does support a lot of negative stereotypes about sports, and it's unfortunate. in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, like by its very nature, it's going to be exploring this stuff, right? Because it's about the idea of a devil, right, and trying to put twists on wishes. So this is the kind of shit. But this is what I mean: is it's going to draw a line about like what it means, what's good and what's bad, and this idea that, like you're saying, that your masculinity is tied to the size of your as you put it, dink.
I blame Adam Sandler, and you know why.
But it's this, it's awful, man. Like, but yeah, so sorry, but let's keep this rolling. What's the next one?
So then we get to wish number 4, where Elliot wishes to be smart. He doesn't want to be stupid again. He also wishes to be successful and rich, but not like crazy rich. Basically, he wants to be a sophisticated gentleman. And we are introduced to him coming out of an elevator. He's wearing his suit jacket like a cape, the way that you see in oh so many movies. He is accepted into this party, this salon, really, of highfalutin individuals by Miriam Shore, playing the hostess of the party. And he's talking about how he wants to know everything. That is specifically how he says, I want to know everything about everything. So he comes in and he's spouting out all these facts about the world, like where the term gin comes from, coming from the term Genever, which is, French for juniper, which is the lovely berry that this libation comes to us from. Like he's this jerk. He's an author. I just wrote this book, and Orlando Jones as the African party guest. That's literally what he is credited as for this scene. And he has like one of those long, African sounding names. It's not actually like them. Like I have friends like Akinyemi Olatakuma Akinsinde. Like that's a real name. That's not the type of name that Orlando Jones has. But they're like, yeah, a bunch of syllables. That'll be fine. And he's like, not only your new book is so good, it's already won the Pulitzer and it's not even been published yet. Like, oh, okay, that's fun. So he goes to Allison. He's like, and Allison will fall in love with me. She's not in love with me, because that was kind of an issue with the sensitive guy, is that I love you, Elliot, but you're just too sensitive for me, is her kind of kiss off line there. So here, she will fall in love with me. So she doesn't know who she is. She sees him at the party. They start chatting. He says clitoris. Honestly, for being the Brendan Fraser movie where he says the word clitoris, I might give this one 5 stars. Because it's kind of, it's just weird, right? I can't think of another movie like rated, it's PG-13, this film, right? I can't think of another PG, I guess South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, right? Because Stan's looking for the clitoris the whole time. But that's rated R, right? That's not a PG-13 film.
Yeah, it's rated R. Yeah. No, that movie is definitely rated R.
But he has that whole talk about, like, sensations, and he's like, the touch of our hands to the nipples, clitoris, penis. He has this whole thing. So he seduces Allison. And then they go back to his place, and then, here's Toby Huss as his lover, because if he's sophisticated and intelligent, that must mean he's a flaming homosexual. Elliot Richards' term, not mine.
Yeah, it's a good twist on the wish, right? Like
yes.
from the context of what the wish is, making him not be interested in women, despite the woman finally being interested in him. Totally fine. Like that in that aspect. It's just then, then what happens with the language at that point. That's the worst part of this scene. Is really it's just the vocabulary that they choose to use. And I sound like I'm being like a real uptight asshole about this, but I mean, like, it's not that I can't watch this movie. Right. It's just that it's hard to watch this scene and not cringe.
It's not the end of it's not the end of Ace Ventura. The end of Ace Ventura, and really just the whole back half of Ace Ventura, is hyper-transphobic and unwatchable. This film, like, it's a little upsetting that Toby Huss's, like, gay character that he's dating is just such a stereotype of what homosexuality was in the 90s. Then his reaction to it is a lot of the gay panic type of stuff that we also saw in comedy in the late 90s, early 2000s. So that is just really unfortunate. But I will give them credit because he's still at his heart Elliot Richard, right? So just because the wish that has been granted says that he is embodying this homosexual, that doesn't mean that he couldn't like push through it for his own like feelings and stuff that he holds inside. But this is the first time that we see him actually kiss Allison. The first time that he tries to kiss her during the sensitive guy wish, it is broken up by Elizabeth Hurley with two Dobermans named Peter and Dudley after the guys from the original film. That's just like really nice, like Hollywood Easter egg. I really like that. But he does kiss her as sophisticated Elliot, and he feels nothing. And I really like that nature of it. Like the fact that even if his mind wanted to, his body is not willing. Like it's a nice little extra detail there. And I know that.
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, it's a complex. It's a very minute like moment in this otherwise problematic scene, but like it is a complex look at the idea of sexuality, like just an exploration of, and the idea that it's not necessarily a set in stone thing, and that people can try things and they can realize certain things work for them and certain things don't. Sometimes those things are not the things that society ever talks about. Like there's all sorts of shit that is wrapped up in that moment, and it is a complex like second in an otherwise 20 minutes of nonsense. Yeah. Well, not 20. It's probably only about 10, right?
Yeah, I think they're all about 10 minutes long. And so this scene, he doesn't 666 out of it. It just kind of fades to Elizabeth Hurley doing that whole teacher scene. And that's because originally, honestly, this is so out of pocket, this wish. Elizabeth Hurley joins him in the bedroom that he was in with Toby Huss and Francis O'Connor. They both storm out of the room, leaving him alone on the bed. So she shows up in a sexy maid uniform, and it's like, oh, maybe we could use this room together. And he's like, oh, no, I'm gay. Haven't you heard? And she's like, yeah, that was a bit unfortunate. And it's this really good back and forth between them about the wishes and the nature of what's been happening. And this is a scene, I'm sad that it's deleted for 3 different reasons. Reason 1 is the fact it is just more great philosophical discussion between Hurley and Fraser. They are they are slaying in this moment of the scene. And then what she ultimately says to him is, maybe the problem with all of your wishes is you're trying to be inherently good. You're trying to be morally right. Maybe you need to make a bad wish. A wish where you're a bad boy. Lean into the fact that I'm the fucking devil. And she's like, so like, oh, I think I see what you're saying. But like, what do you mean? She's like, 3 words: sex, drugs, rock and roll. And so he wishes to basically be a rock star. Leading into the second best part about this deleted scene. We get to watch Brendan Fraser sing again, just like in Airheads. Honestly, if they had been calling him Chaz, if fucking Buscemi and Sandler had been the drummer and the bassist in that band, like I think my heart would have exploded from elation. Like it was a chance to really, it feels super inspired by the fact that he had appeared in the film Airheads 6 years earlier. And just like, cause it's even like Paul Adelstein's character, he's playing like the manager. He looks so goddamn much like Judd Nelson, Jim. He's got the 2 earrings. He's got the same haircut. Like it would be that sort of Hollywood Easter egg to stuff that happens in Airheads. And Brendan is singing, and it's cool because he's not like a hard rocker like he's supposed to be in Airheads. He's kind of like a goth sort of Marilyn Manson-esque like character. He's one part Kurt Cobain, one part Marilyn Manson, one part Ozzy Osbourne, right? Yeah. Like there's like an amalgamation of rock star, which is what to expect here. Right. Yeah, I like the first part when they're talking in the room and all that. When it gets to this, I don't know if it's that this scene went on for so long or what, but it just, after a couple of minutes, I was like, okay,
All right, I get it. Like
the
we get it.
joke.
We get it. It
Yeah.
really, really overstays its welcome. I can see why it was cut in general.
Well, and then also all the swearing is edited. It's all bleeped. And I don't know if that's because it appears on a DVD for a PG-13 rated film before things were like special content is unedited was a thing that we'd start getting on DVDs. It's also a hidden deleted scene. It is an Easter egg on the DVD. You have to go to special features and then hit right twice, and then a little Elizabeth Hurley on his shoulder lights up, and that's the only way to access this 10-minute deleted sequence from the film.
And it's like a completed sequence. That's the other key thing about it. This isn't like Monkey Bone had some deleted scenes that I think we've talked about before, and they're like unfinished because of all of the like work that would have had to go into it. They just don't finish them. Yeah. This is a finished part of the movie.
Yeah. And it's also, in addition to the fact that like it is grimy and it is gross. Like, it is definitely a fully completed sequence that they ended up cutting out of the film. And I think that's like my third favorite thing is the fact, like, this is where the movie shows you what this film would be like if it were rated R. Because he's saying fuck a bunch. He says cunt at one point. You fucking cunt. And I'm just like, was this going to be in the movie? And then everything that I found says that they're bleeped out as well, which is a little strange because the deleted scene of Toby Huss and Orlando Jones as the basketball commentators, he ends up saying cocksucker at the end. And it's like, well, that totally would not fly on a PG-13 thing. So I like, part of me wants to track down a copy of this DVD and watch the deleted scene and see if it's all bleeped there as well. Or if I was watching the movie, if they were all just going to be bleeped. Because there's no way that this sequence could exist in the movie as it is and get a PG-13 rating. Like, it's just impossible. Because in addition to all of the F-bombs that are dropped and the C-bomb that is dropped, like, they start to have sex in the middle of it.
It's the anarchy wish. Yeah. It is the truly like, hey, like rather than try and work around all of my monkey paw bullshit, right? My all of my caveat nonsense, work with it. Like, if you just embrace the fact that there's going to be something wrong, have that be part of the wish almost in a weird way.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so I want to be just a completely fucked up rock and roll star. Like, all right, it's the devil, you know, right? It's that like, we're going to get into this and you're already going to know what the catch is. And the catch is that you're an asshole. And like, okay, fine. And like, and at this moment in the movie, it would have made sense for Elliot to be in that place. But here's what I'll say. If you're really trying to show him grow and change and all of this, I don't know. Like, I could see why this might be a little bit of a hell. I don't know. Or maybe I would have felt better about Elliot's journey if this scene was in there. I can't tell you how I feel. It's going to be one of those. This movie is really truly Schrodinger's cat for me.
Yeah, no,
you called it at the beginning.
No, I did. You've mentioned it enough times where I'm like, this is a film where like it depends on his mood when he watches it. I hope that he's in a good mood right now for this episode. I think the thing that I dig about it is the fact that it is the moment. It is not necessary. This wish is not necessary to the film. You still have a pretty complete film with its still semi-disjointed nature by the fact that like 50% of this movie is composed of 5 different sketches, right? Adding this 6th sketch into it, what it does, and I think that it becomes superfluous, is the proof that Elliot really doesn't like himself, or at least the self that he is putting on. It's this weird sort of thing because he decides to don that I'm going to be an asshole thing about being a rock star. And I think it is that moment where he's like, I like who I am. Like, I do like who I am, but also I am kind of putting on airs to try to get people to like me. Like, I think he likes basketball, but I think the way that he talks to Steven, Orlando Jones' character, is not him being sincere or genuine as a person. I think like the way like it really is this thing where it is holding that mirror up to it, probably because he's doing cocaine off the mirror, but you know, while he's in that mirror, he sees, God, all I've been doing is putting on things. I need to just be happy being myself and okay with whatever the outcome of that is. Because, like, the other gross part about that is that he's about to have sex with Allison, and she's like, yeah, we'll go back to the hotel. Fucking Elliot, he's nowhere to be found, so he's not going to be a problem. She's so fucking high doing a best Courtney Love impression that she thinks that he is not Elliot. And it's just like, ugh, like it hurts him, that moment of like, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm treating myself. It is a superfluous scene. I understand why it was cut, but I'm glad that it exists and that you can watch it, if that makes sense. Because it's sort of like the deleted act of Some Girls. I would never want to watch Some Girls with the Reggie act intact, but as a one-act play, doing the Reggie scene, I think is very interesting to what Some Girls is. Yeah, we're really leaning into the fact that we have theater degrees this episode, aren't we? Oh, fuck me. But yeah, it's an interesting little moment, and he dies in it, and he gets brought back to life. It's good, but also it is this fun moment, like photography wise, where it looks like The Doors or Spinal Tap. It like becomes a completely different looking film. So even outside of everything else, I think it would be jarring to the audience to go from this
in much the same way that it becomes almost telenovela-ish when he becomes the drug lord, or it becomes a like a romantic spy thriller-esque like look to it when he becomes the know-it-all.
Sophisticated guy.
It's part of the bit that that it kind of changes look and feel and style in that regard. So I don't know if that part would be jarring. So much is the fact that it's just so kinetic compared to the rest of the movie.
I think that it's the 1-2 punch. The fact that it is so much movement in it, and the fact that it is, because of that movement, the way that it's filmed, like it's so much darker, the lighting and everything, that I think that in the middle of the movie, and you're kind of leading to the wrap up of the film at this moment, like right. It would be kind of jarring. If it went a little bit earlier, I think maybe you could accept it better. But if it happened any earlier, then you'd ruin the whole pacing of the film. I get why it's gone, but I am happy that it is preserved. Which brings us to the final wish, which is really just the excuse to have some fun and do a sketch. He decides that he wants Allison to love him because he's going to be a great man. He's going to leave a lasting legacy. He wishes to be the president of the United States of America. But in true monkey paw fashion, he didn't specify which president or the current president. So Elizabeth Hurley's devil, being the devil that she is, makes him our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. And not on just like a random Tuesday of Abraham Lincoln's presidency. No, he's going to go see a little play called Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater. And I feel like something significant happened that night that Lincoln saw Our American Cousin, right? It's gone right out of my head, Sajin. Yeah. So it is the night that Lincoln is assassinated, and Fraser's just having a ball being Lincoln, where he's like, maybe we can just go see a movie instead. I don't know if I want to go to the theater. What with freeing the slaves and my wife losing her mind, I'm just not in the mood for a show. It's also really interesting because Paul Adelstein is playing like an advisor, and by all accounts, is probably that advisor that there are strong beliefs that Abraham Lincoln was having a homosexual relationship with. So it's kind of an interesting little like nod to, is he also a homosexual again? Like, there's a lot of pathos going on in this scene. He's looking for the pager the whole time. Eventually, it's where everybody hid their pager in the 90s, in his boot. But that's when John Wilkes Booth shows up and goes, Sic Semper Tyrannis, and he's, hold on, 666. All right, you can shoot me in the head. And that's the last wish. That was not that problematic, I guess, right? Maybe the pathos I talked about with him maybe still being gay, but that's subtext from stuff I know.
It's a blink and you miss it moment, really. But like
it's more like a Lincoln you miss it. You hate me. I'm so sorry. Said the Say Report is over, everybody. I went a pun too far. Yeah. So that happens. And then, he talks to the devil and she's like, all right, you're down to your last wish. And he's like, no, I have 2 wishes left. She's like, no. And he's like, yeah. And he counts through the wishes. And she's like, no, you forgot about the Big Mac and Coke. So then he decides in true Faustian fashion that he's just not going to make that last wish. And he goes to a house of worship to seek help from the house of worship. He speaks to a priest played by... I'm going to say something here, Siegen. I'd like your opinion on it. This is all opinion. This is just conjecture by the Say Report here on the show right now. Do you think Harold Ramis has a better relationship with Brian Doyle Murray than with Bill Murray?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I know that might have been a crazy question to ask, but yeah. I mean, Brian Doyle Murray, he's shown up in all these films as well, right? He's in Vegas. He's in all the movies, and he plays sort of meatier roles. Like in Caddyshack, he's the guy who runs the Caddyshack. He's the mayor in Groundhog's Day, paving the way for him being the mayor in Ghostbusters the video game in 2009. A lot of fun moments there. So he plays the priest, and Elliot says, "I need to talk to you about something," and he tells the priest that he made a deal with the devil, and the reaction from a priest is interesting and telling about all of the religious stuff we were talking about a lot earlier in this episode. And the fact that the priest thinks that he's crazy and calls the police to arrest him. Like, is that how a priest should act when someone's like, I made a deal with the devil? And she thinks that, like, a Big Mac and a Coke should count as a wish, but I don't think that's fair.
No, I do think there's something like that you're supposed to draw the line at, like harm. If anybody's in self-harm or going to harm others, then you need to report it. But pretty sure in general, it's pretty much kept under your hat. That's kind of the whole point.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's not in the confessional booth. Like, that's the thing. If he were in a confessional, obviously it would stay under his hat. He's just sitting in a pew and is approached by this man of God.
Yeah, I mean, it's talking to your lawyer, whether it's at lunch or in their office, they're still going to charge you. You know what I mean? Like,
And there's also still the idea of privilege when you're talking to your lawyer, whether it's at lunch or their office.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that reaction that he gets arrested by that because of his conversation with that priest, that is the part of this film that, like, weirdly doesn't sit well with me, and also kind of is telling, I think, of what, like, Ramis's feelings are about religion, is the fact that, like, that hypocrisy and that whole thing that we all used to talk about is the fact that, like, there was a long held belief, a firm belief, like, I would have to say the majority of the country on some level felt like Jesus was going to return in the year 2000. And then there was this whole thing of, like, yeah, but even if Jesus came back, they'd probably throw him in a mental institution and not believe that he was the Son of God because of this weird skepticism that we have. Like, was that a thing that, like, just felt like it was just in the water around you at the time, Siegen?
I mean, there was a lot of year 2000 end of the world stuff. So, I mean, yes, one of the many things that was up in, like, in our culture and showing up on, like, news stories and shit were people that were expecting Jesus to show up and the rapture to happen. I just throw that on the same pile as every other, year 2000 conspiracy at the same time.
Yeah, know? Which tracks, right? So just, I don't know. Like, he gets arrested. He goes to jail. He meets the angel, played by Gabriel Cassius, and he's like, she can't take your soul. The devil can't take your soul. And he, specifically only refers to the devil as a woman, which I think is, like, nice, sort of that movie making stuff we're talking about, that thing where, like, they put some care into this movie, which is why, yeah, ultimately it does feel like missed potential when you see the end game of it all. Is that, like, he does that, and he teaches Elliot, is like, they can't have your soul. The devil can't have your soul because it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God. You're only renting it, basically, for this time on the planet. And all you got to do is, like, be better, do good. And it's this nice little moment. And then, despite telling the desk sergeant that he does not know how to get to the club, he wanders back to the DV8. And that is another moment that is, like, really deep, is this belief that, like, those people who are in the club in the middle of the day, they're the same people who are there at night, and they've just, like, prematurely aged because of all the partying? Like, what is the message there, Sejin? Or is that club actually hell? Is it a circle of hell? Is it the amount of, like, part of hell that she has purveyance over? Like Bruce Almighty got in Bruce Almighty? But he goes to the club, and he's going to say to her, you know, like, I'm not going to make that last wish. Truly Faustian, right? Like, I've been making a lot of Faust references, but, you know, the whole Dr. Faustus thing is that he makes this deal with the devil, but then his loophole is he's not going to get my soul unless I use all the wishes, which is also really nicely referenced because she says you're running out of time to make your final wish. Read the contract. And I like that idea that, like, the devil has made so many deals for souls that they're modifying the contract, like, as they go. So we're never going to have another Dr. Faust. It's never going to happen again. You only have until, like, however long to make all your wishes. So then he's like, I'm not going to make a wish. And Elizabeth Hurley transforms into a real, like, Sherlabog looking Tim Curry from Legend style, big horned, big winged devil for the briefest moment before turning into herself in a snakeskin bikini, which we saw earlier as graffiti in the parking lot that looks like it's straight out of Bulletproof from the first scene of Bulletproof.
Nice. Yeah.
Like it just looks like that where the car explodes because she pours flaming brandy into it. And she threatens him with a trident. That's not what it's called. A pitchfork is when the devil's wielding it. If it's a mer person, it's a trident. If it's the devil, it's a pitchfork.
I think specifically also, I think that a trident is a pitchfork. Like, you know what I mean? Like all tridents are pitchforks, but not all pitchforks are tridents. Because pitchforks will often have more than 3 or sometimes only have 2 tongues. Trident, try 3 tongues.
Well, a fork by its nature means 4. Like, that's the whole thing of it. 4 tines is what makes it a fork. And hers specifically has
that
only
can't possibly be
tines.
True.
Look it up, Sejin. Not now.
Because a tuning fork only has 2.
Right, but that's a tuning fork. That's different. Like,
is that not also the same use of fork?
I guess that's a good point. I'm not sure. I think it's the tines of it. I think it's the fork is only a fork if it has the 4 tines.
And a fork in the road is like 2 paths.
Sejin, I'm not a linguist. I don't understand.
I don't think fork has anything to do with 4. I think that.
Well, you know what? We'll look it up for the next episode of the Say Report because this one is already going long. I'm having a blast though. I really thank you so much, Sejin, for letting me talk about Bedazzled the way that we did in this episode. I really feel the Brendan Fraser flowing through me, and I thank you for that. So then, forced to make a wish, Elliot makes his final wish, which is for. I can't even remember her name at this point. Allison. I wish that Allison has a happy life. And that, because it was a truly benevolent act, which, is it a truly benevolent act in that moment? He's kind of fearful of his life. What does it really mean to wish that someone else has a nice life? Like, really, it's the fact that he makes an unselfish wish. Right? All the other wishes up to this point have been selfish, been for his benefit. That nullifies the contract. That's the loophole in the devil's contract. And on some level, you got to feel like the devil kind of wants to be tricked, right? Because that's like a pretty easy one. Like, I think Rumpelstiltskin wanted her to be able to guess his name. Why would he want a fucking baby? I don't get it. but yeah, so his soul is returned to him, and she says this nice moment that proves to me my thought that, like, I really did like you, Elliot. I wasn't lying about that. I like you as a person. It would have been nice to spend eternity with you, but nah, you go and you have your life. So then after this whole experience, putting on different shoes, trying on different personalities, and seeing that ultimately is the person inside that's going to define his happiness anything, he goes back to his work at Cinedyne, and he's kind of like mean to all those people whose approval he sought before. Your Orlando Jones, your Toby Husses, your Paul Edelsteins, your Marion Shores, and he's just like kind of barks at him. Like it's kind of a little out of pocket the way that he acts, But they all kind of like disperse after, because Bob, played by Paul Addison, comes like, oh, he's like kind of putting on Elliot, joking, like talking like him, imitating him. That's the word I'm looking for. And he kind of like says, he grabs him by the chest. He's like, nice talking with you, Bob. And then throws him down. And so they're going to leave him alone because he's confident now. He's confident that he is a good person because he's seen the other type of person he could be. He doesn't like any of those. And then he rides up the steepest fucking hill in San Francisco while there's a person in the background having to walk up the hill carrying their bike, which is an effect that was achieved by pulling him up the hill by like 13 gauge cable. And then erasing the cable from the scene. He gets back to his house, which we've never seen his house, right? Like, that's a weird sort of movie where you never see where the main character lives. Certainly like a movie like this, right? So he gets back to his house, and there's somebody moving in. And as Sejan has already alluded to it, it is Frances O'Connor, but this time she's playing Nicole, not Nikki. Everybody always calls me Nikki. And then it becomes Nee, and then finally I'm Nih. And I don't want to be Nih. I want to be Nicole. It's a really weird thing. And it's like his reward for not losing his soul is a version of Allison who, like, he can start out as this new confident person. You know, another one of it, Sejan, is fucking Susie Q. I hate that at the end of Susie Q, the Ghost movie from Disney Channel, another girl who is played by Amy Jo Johnson shows up. And he gets to be with her. That's a weird moment. If we're talking about it. So yeah. So she has the same speakers as him. And honestly, that's like, other than the fact that she's also a little bit socially awkward, but they start dating. Change Your Mind by Sister Hazel comes on. I love that song. It's a great song. And then, you know, it goes back to the devil searching through people as they were in the beginning. And then end movie. Elliot is happy with the doppelganger of the woman he thought he was in love with the past 4 years. And the devil and Angel are playing chess, and the devil tries to cheat. Roll credits. It's Bedazzled, people. And it's
Bedazzled.
It's a fun movie. I don't know if it's a deep movie. It's got some problems. But at the end of the day, it's got Brendan Fraser in it. And we're here to celebrate Brendan Fraser History Month, and this, for a long time, was one of my favorite Brendan Fraser films, right? It's always pretty much been Airheads. I saw Airheads when it came out in 94, and then we had the black box at the time, so I watched it as much as I could whenever it came on cable. I love Airheads. This was that movie I saw probably like 2000, 2001 while we were on vacation on Resort TV. And I connected with it, but mostly I connected with it because I never saw it from the beginning. I saw all the funny little moments, and I got to witness a lot of great work between Hurley and Fraser. So, Sejan, how are you? Let's take the top off this box. Let's finish our tier list from last week. Where do you put Bedazzled?
I would put it in mid B. It is a real mid film for me, I think, overall. There are times when I watch this movie and I really enjoy myself, and there are times when I watch this movie or come across this movie and I'm just not in the mood. So for me, it really is mid B tier.
Yeah. I am not opposed to putting it in the B tier at all. Watching this film, I understand why as a kid I liked it so much. What Brendan brings to this, the fact that he basically plays 7 different roles in this movie, 8 different roles, if you count the fact that he is a different Elliot at the beginning and at the end, 9 if we include the deleted scene. He is putting in the work in each of those moments.
I would watch this more than The Nut Job, but maybe not before Mummy Returns. So, like, literally right in the middle of B tier for me.
I think that's what I'm saying. That's just like, I think Bedazzled, watching it again today and seeing it from the beginning, I understand that. I have no problem grabbing Bedazzled and putting it after The Mummy Returns. After The Mummy Returns. Yeah. Because it is definitely better than The Nut Job, Journey to the Center Earth, and Crash in terms of how committed he is to it. However,
and watchability. I mean, like,
yeah.
the nut job's pretty rewatchable.
I
I don't know if I
Nut
care to ever see Journey to the Center of the Earth again. I will not ever watch Crash again if I can avoid it.
I mean, the episode where we did Crash is called the episode where we finally talk about Crash. Like, it was just an inevitability for the two of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. I think that Bedazzled, it's a film that I really like, but I don't think it does not touch Inkheart or Encino Man or those films.
Right.
But I don't think it goes any lower than B. I think that, like, by the nature of this, right, we're like, it's so weird, tier list, right? Let's just, like, swivel real brief to this one, that you go S to D. And I get that why, because, like, you don't want to say anything's a failure, really. But, like, B becomes your average. It becomes your average score if you have S to D as your tiers.
Yeah.
And this is a middle movie. I agree with you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for what this was, this beautiful exploration of the film Bedazzled, in final celebration of Brendan Fraser History Month. It's also the end of Suits LA. That was at the top of this. If you listened, thank you. If you skipped right to the Brendan Fraser of it all, I kind of get it. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. That said, if you want to keep the conversation going, we have a Discord that you can join. Invitations to join are available wherever we are on social media, which as of this recording is Facebook and X, formerly Twitter. You can also send an email to us, thesayreport@gmail.com, and you can request an invitation that way, or we can just correspond like it's the year 2000 and Y2K didn't make the world explode. So you can just send emails to us, we'll read them, we'll respond. We're those kind of guys. But as always, if you want to have it sent just to me, Devin Decker, or to him, Sejan Sarwick, just put our name in the subject line, and we will make sure that it is distributed appropriately so that the other Say Reporter doesn't get to read your deepest and darkest hopes and dreams for whatever Say Reporter you're trying to get in touch with. All of that said, thank you so much for joining us for this. Is this the 9th Brendan Fraser History Month that we've celebrated on the Say Report, Sejan?
I think so, man.
It's not the 9th year that we've been celebrating it, but yeah, geez. So thanks for joining us for this 9th Brendan Fraser History Month. We are so thankful to have you guys as listeners. And before I gush anymore, let's throw it over to Will to bring us home. We'll see you in June for a less Brendan Fraser-filled podcast. Enjoy your day.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Sejan Sarwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.
It's the most Brendan's time of the year, with the mummies all rising and Fraser surprising in roles we hold dear. It's the most Brendan, it's time of the year. There'll be tunes to be raiding and jungle men swinging, with George in a loincloth nearby. There'll be laughs that are hearty from Encino Man's party, and airheads still rocking the sky. It's the most Brendan, it's time of the year. From the whale to Bedazzled, his charm leaves us frazzled. He's earned every cheer. It's the most Brendan, it's time of the year. He's been cursed in old Cairo, played robot with sorrow in Doom Patrol's darker